dark haze. Ladies of the night with eyes of red, vampires in the alleys where good men dread, wolfmen howling beneath the pale moon. But justice is coming and coming soon. From saloons to graveyards where evil sleeps, they walk among us, secrets they keep, nightmare hunters with souls ablaze, cleaning up this town through the dark haze. Cryptids themselves, yet they stand tall against the darkness, answering the call for every lost soul, every whispered prayer. They fight for the light in the midnight air. From saloons to graveyards where evil sleeps, they walk among us, secrets they keep, nightmare hunters with souls ablaze, cleaning up this town through the dark haze. The night is young, the hunt begins. For against the darkness where hope never ends.
Good evening, folks, and welcome back to the Nightmare Hunters podcast. We took a little brief hiatus while I was dealing with some health issues, but we are back, and I think we're going to be stronger than ever. Joining me in the house tonight is Robbie Jed Rains and Carrie Pocket Doc Davis. We are going to be bringing you guys some entertainment tonight, and I hope you guys thoroughly enjoy it. But first off, I hope you guys all had a great Christmas holiday. I hope it was full of faith, family, and friends, and I hope you guys had a wonderful wonderful meal and full of fellowship and happiness. And I wish that for the coming year for everybody. Boys, how the hell are you?
Wyatt, I am rolling.
Mom always doted on the frowner. Robbie, how you doing, brother?
Yeah, I'm here.
Got to count for something.
Yeah, it's hard to follow. Wyatt, I'm rolling, but you know,
it's tough to follow.
Robbie's like, well, I'm upright breathing, so I guess it's a start.
Yep.
Any day I wake up this side of the dirt, it's got to be a good one.
As my daddy used to say, I'm always if I'm on the upside of the green, it's a good day.
Well, man, we've already got well over 100 people in the chat, and it is flying.
Awesome.
Folks, if I didn't get a chance to say hi to you in the chat, I know there's a bunch of people popping in now. I see Toshi in there, Vicky Dennison. Of course, just saw Robbie. Miss Lene's in there. There's a ton of people floating by, and I want to welcome each and every one of you guys to the show. We are damned happy to have you guys tonight. But tonight, we're going to be talking about something that is just a little more than your average Bigfoot encounter. We're going to talk about incidents where cryptids actually laid siege to cabins or campers or other things, homes. These are some of the more infamous cases in the Bigfoot and in the Dogman community. So it's not just Bigfoot, it'll be Dogman examples as well. But before we get started, let's describe this a little bit. There's a certain kind of fear that only comes when the sun goes down. It's not the fear of the dark itself, but the fear of what might be moving in that darkness. I've experienced that fear. We've experienced that fear out in the field trying to figure out what the hell was circling us. Most encounters with something unknown are quick. just a shadow crossing the trail, or a figure moving through your long beam lights as you're rounding a curve. Maybe a shadow in the woods behind you, or a scream in the distance. But sometimes it just doesn't stay in the woods, though. Sometimes it doesn't vanish after a glimpse. Sometimes it walks right up to your door. And these are the cases that we're going to be talking about. These are the rarest and most terrifying categories of cryptid encounters, the sieges. And y'all may not know all of these stories, but we're going to be covering them tonight. These are the nights when people found themselves surrounded, stalked, and pressed in on by the creatures that didn't just want to be seen. They wanted to test the doors. They wanted to test the windows, and they wanted to see what was inside. These aren't just campfire stories, folks. These are stories that have been verified, been investigated for decades, in some cases, almost a century. But these are also some of the most terrifying cases that we've ever encountered. These are nights when families barricaded themselves inside their home, holding weapons and hoping that the walls would hold till morning. These are the nights when things walked around the cabin and beat on the door and tried to get inside. The nights when you could hear the claws scraping on the siding. And these are the ones that stick with us, folks. We're talking about Ape Canyon, where miners were attacked by something massive in the Washington Mountains. Honobia, Oklahoma, and yes, it's spelled Honobia, but it's actually pronounced Honobia, where a family had, a long period of time where they were being attacked in their home, harassed, having food stolen. Of course, the infamous Lockett Ranch story from Taylor, Mississippi, the Palmyra siege in Maine, and probably the most infamous of all, the beast of the land between the lakes, about the family that was lost there in 82. And every one of these stories begins the same way. Somebody heard something, and then they realized they weren't alone. So welcome to the Nightmare Hunters, folks. Let's get started. Boys, how about we start with the siege of Ape Canyon? I think that's a good place to start.
I think that's good.
This happened back in 1924. And Doc, you want to give us a recap on what happened? Because there's some folks in the audience that may not know exactly what happened with the Ape Canyon incident. So why don't you go and give us the story, and we'll just kind of jump on it from there.
Okay. All right. So this is our first case file. It's the siege of Ape Canyon. And this is back in 1924. In the summer of 1924, the slopes of Mount St. Helens, if y'all remember Mount St. Helens from the 80s, when the infamous eruption, they were still wild, remote, and largely untouched. There were 5 miners that went in there, Fred Beck, Marion Smith, and Smith's son Roy, and 2 others. They were working a gold claim deep in the canyon. Now, their claim was basically just a little more than a rough-hewn box of logs perched up on a ledge, looking down over this big gorge down there. There weren't any roads in there. There were no neighbors, no phones, no motor cars, no luxuries.
Like Robinson Crusoe, as primitive as can be.
As primitive as can be. I'm glad somebody picked up on the Gilligan's Island reference. Just there was endless forest. So, and one of my favorite things about going up the mountains is the sound of that wind moving through the pines. Man, that's the most peaceful sound in the world. Now, for days, all these cats had felt uneasy. They something was out there, and it wasn't no man. It started with footprints. Now, check this out. These tracks measured 19 inches, pressed deep into the volcanic ash.
That's like 3 of Doc's feet and some more.
Your buddy goes there between the lines. So this is 19 inches right here. All right. So that's 19 inches. And it was pressed so deep in the volcanic ash that they were like, this is definitely not a man. It's too big, too heavy, too wide. The stride was over 6 feet across, man. The stride was massive. And the prints appeared that in places where a human could easily reach. But then they saw that after they'd seen the tracks, then came the harassment. So some rocks started getting chunks. Little ones at first, tossed from the tree line where the men were working their claim. They'd look up, they wouldn't see anything. And then just the dark line of trees. But the rocks kept coming from the same direction and always with some force, deliberate force. This wasn't just like scree coming off the mountainside. And at nighttime, they heard movement on the cliffs above them, heavy footsteps, something pacing, and something watching. Now, the tipping point came when one of the miners spotted something, a figure looking over a ridge. It was a broad, dark shouldered shape with a head that rose above the rocks, and it scared him, so he shot at it. Well, the shot echoed through the canyon, and the canyon came back with something. So that night, after the sun went down, back behind the mountains, the men were like barricading themselves in the cabin. So they stacked some furniture up against the door. They loaded their rifles, and they were sitting there and they were waiting. All right. So all of a sudden, this big impact, boom, hit the wall like a battering ram. Then another, boom, then another, then another. Something or somethings, several somethings started hurling boulders, not little rocks, but we're talking boulders, heavy enough to make the entire structure shake. Now they were something was climbing. They heard the roof straining and groaning, and they were like, "Dude, something's up on the freaking roof." Something was climbing on it, dragging across it from one end to the other. And the men were firing between the cracks in the logs where the chinking had been, through windows, through the door, anything they could to keep these little suckers back. At one point, an arm reached through a gap in the log. That's a big gap. It was thick and hair covered, massive, and the men fired at it point blank, driving it back. Now, according to them, this assault lasted for hours. And during that time, the creatures kept circling around, pounding, climbing, doing anything they can, throwing rocks to try to gain access to the inside of this cabin. So if anything, you can say this cabin was very well built to sustain that kind of sustained siege, to withstand that sustained siege. Now, and until when the first rays of dawn crept over the canyon walls was when they boot scooted up into the woods. So the miners said, you know what? I think that's it. We fled. They gone. We gone. It's time to get the heck out of here. And they never, ever came back to their claim. So
they also abandoned a crap ton of equipment.
Dude, I'm so freaking lootly, man. I'd be GTFO out there, son. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So,
but for in 1924 was it? For them to abandon that kind of equipment, that was a substantial money investment.
That's a huge loss on their investment, man. 100%.
Plus the time they spent building the cabin and working the claim. They completely abandoned the claim and bugged the hell out of there.
Exactly. And so, DA, why do you think, as far as this place, why was it so important in the historical context in Sasquatch? Because we didn't call it Bigfoot until the 50s, right? That was in the 20s.
Yep. Well, this is one of the earliest incidents of a recorded Bigfoot attack. Hey, Bobby Singleton just gifted 5 memberships. Thank you, Bobby. I appreciate it.
Bobby.
Congratulations to everybody that wins. But this is one of the earliest recorded attacks, much like the Bauman incident, which happened about 40 years before this, was in the 1880s. This one actually had multiple eyewitnesses, not just one. Mm-hmm. And the fact that these guys went to their graves swearing that this happened, plus the fact that they abandoned all this equipment, lends a lot of credence to something happening here at this cabin. So this is the first documented incident where multiple eyewitnesses said, yes, this is what happened. And their stories were the same.
Well, and these people too, I remember us talking about it in the past, these weren't just some jacklegs. These were well-respected members of their community. And
seriously credible. Seasoned, not only hunters and outdoorsmen, but miners. Those guys, those frontier miners, man, those guys weren't afraid of anything.
Dude, they were hard as a coffin nail. And, so very credible dudes. And five folks all witnessed the same exact thing, and their stories all corroborated.
Well, I think what provoked that was him finally taking a shot at one. Robbie, I think up to that point they were just basically harassing the miners, like, what are you doing in our territory? But because the version of the story I read, he actually claimed he hit it. He said that he fired and it fell off the edge into the ravine, and they never saw the body, so they don't know if he killed it or not. But the fact that he took a shot and likely hit one probably prompted that response.
Well, that's probably what it meant when Doc was saying that the canyon answered. It's probably he probably at least hit it. Yeah,
and Robbie, you've even talked about people who have fired at them and how it gives it a provoked response, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, Wyatt. They said that he took the shot at one and they saw it fall into the ravine, but they never found the body. By the time they got over to the edge of the ravine, it was already gone.
That is crazy. Yeah, it just pissed them off real good. Especially if it hurt it and they had to carry it off.
Yeah, that's one of the just comparing that to our own encounters out there. That's one of the reasons we've been very disciplined about taking a shot at anything, because we know once you cross the Rubicon there, once you've taken that shot, all bets are off. You're opening yourself up for a violent response.
Yeah. 100%.
And I think that's a great distinction that you were making there, Doc, between it being just a rock being thrown at it and being a freaking boulder.
Yeah, because at first it was probably like, hey, little tiny rocks, get out of here, get out of here, get out of here. Somebody's
or
here.
Like when we were on Combs Ferry, Robbie, we could hear little rocks. They weren't very big, but they were certainly big enough to get our attention.
Yeah.
Yeah, but whenever they shot and escalated it, that's whenever they escalated right back, said, okay, so enough of these little pebbles. We're going to give you some basketballs.
Yeah.
Go, oops, upside your head. Oops, upside your head. Sorry.
And them fading back into the woods as dawn comes is fairly common in cryptid details, because these things tend to stay out of direct sunlight. There are lots of sightings, don't get me wrong. There are lots of broad daylight sightings, but the most aggressive ones happen in the dark.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So Doc, Robbie, this is for both of y'all. Robbie being the tracker and Doc being the medical side of it. 19-inch tracks. What do you think something like that would weigh, and how big do you think it'd be?
Did it say how deep the impressions went, or did it just say deep into the ground?
I think it just said deep. I don't think it ever said that exactly how deep.
So that's 19 inches right there, from the top of my hat down to below my chest.
And I believe Doc said 6 foot in stride length. So let's just assume that was a walking stride. If that was a walking stride, very conservative guess, on the sunny side of 12 foot, and probably well over 1,000 pounds.
That's a big animal.
And I've had people argue with me about this, about the bone morphology and things like that. Well, if it was that tall, it wouldn't be able to support this. But here's the thing: if you look, and Doc, you back me up on this, the great apes, their bone density and their bone structure are thicker than ours, and they're so a silverback gorilla that's 5.5, 6 feet tall, if it stands all the way up, is going to weigh 700-800 pounds.
Right.
But it looks like a bodybuilder because their bone density supports a bigger, heavier musculature.
Correct. Yes.
So therefore, if these are primates and related to the great apes, like we think they are, that would stand to reason that something that tall could weigh well over 1,000 pounds. Right. I would say probably you're looking at something 12 foot easy and 1,300 to 1,400 pounds. And that's
a big animal.
Yeah. And and like you said, that's a conservative estimate, because depending on how dense their musculature is, everything. I mean, my God, dude.
Muscle weighs more than fat.
They were hawking boulders.
Right. And yeah, muscle weighs more than fat. 100%. And we're talking about the rocks too. I mean, these are boulders that are big enough to shake this cabin. I mean, like I said, in the talking about the encounter, that's a testament to how well built that cabin is, number one. But number two, if you've got something that's strong enough to throw a freaking boulder that can shake the wall of a freaking cabin or shake the entire structure, God Almighty.
Go back to the where Bigfoot phrase was coined. Think about that. They came into that camp, and 55-gallon drums full of diesel fuel had been picked up and chucked down the
Yeah.
not rolled, because there was never any marks where the barrels were rolled down the hill. It was like they were sitting on top of the hill, and then the only impact marks were down at the bottom of the hill. So they were picked up and thrown down that. Okay, somebody says, "Well, what if it wasn't but a 4 or 5 foot drop?" Okay, they still picked up a 55-gallon drum full of diesel fuel. How much
That
more?
weighs about 450 pounds, 500 pounds.
Well, water weighs 7.5 pounds per gallon. And just using that as a base of 55 gallons, that's even at the weight of water. What is that? That's 400 or 500 pounds right there. Gotta be.
Times 7.5. That's 412.5 pounds, not counting the weight of the barrel, which is at least 20, 30 pounds. 30.
I believe the density of gasoline is a little heavier than water. So I think it's probably closer to 8 pounds. But we'll just use water as an example.
So even if this was a 4 foot, it was only up on a 4 foot incline, something that could pick 412 pounds up and chuck it, and it doesn't hit the ground for 4 or 5 feet.
Yeah. I can't throw that.
Hey, Misty.
Hi, Misty.
Hey, Misty. Yeah, it's crazy, man. And so something that can throw something that big has got to be a strong unit, man. And then, they talked about how big the arm was when it busted through the cracks in the logs. The musculature of it, the size, the length of it, much more too. So
let's look at the world's strongest man competitions. Those guys are some of the strongest humans on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys are just incredibly strong. Guys like Marius Pujanowski, Magnus Magnusson, Bjorn Hafthorsen. Those guys are incredibly strong for humans. One of the events they do is called the Atlas Stone, where they take boulders, perfectly round boulders that get increasingly heavy, and put them up on top of a pedestal. And I think the heaviest one is what, Robbie? 125 pounds?
No, that's one of the starting weights, brother.
Oh, that's right. So what's the heaviest one?
The heaviest ones that they use in Strongest Man on Earth and the World's Strongest Man competition are up around 320, 340 pounds.
Okay, we'll say it's 350 pounds. Well, for sake of argument, we'll call it 350 pounds. Those guys, again, who are some of the strongest humans on the planet, will grab that stone and roll it up their body and then press it up onto that pillar. That's 350 pounds. These guys are not throwing them. They're having to use their entire body mass to bring that up and get it up onto that pillar. Yeah. And we're talking, with one of those 55-gallon drums weighing twice that being thrown.
Yeah. And those cats are working at it too. You can watch them, man. They're about to freaking vagal out. They've got every vein in their body popping out, So, yeah.
W. Leonard says, Google says gallon of gasoline weighs 6 to 6.3 pounds per gallon. Diesel weighs 7.1. I would imagine it was diesel running that heavy equipment. But, that's really not going to make a huge difference in the weight. It's still going to be a considerably heavy, especially you add in the weight of the drum itself, which granted the drum's not that much by itself, but we're still looking, well over 400 pounds for something to pick it up and throw it.
Yeah, Patty said, Google said a 55-gallon barrel full of diesel is 450 pounds. So we was right on the money. We was right on the money on that.
That is,
yeah.
That is a lot of weight to pick up. That's a lot of weight to move.
Right.
If for a person to grab, because I've moved 55-gallon drums that were full. You lean them on their edge, you kind of hold it, and you kind of kick at it with your foot and get it to rolling. Yep. But I can't imagine being able to pick one up and bucket like a hay bale. That's
using static strength, which is that's like deadlifts, bench presses, things like that. That's insane amounts of strength. I mean, you look at Hafthor, he just broke the deadlift record at 1,005 kilograms, which is, what's that, Doc?
That's 2.2 pounds per kilogram.
Anyway,
that's a lot.
Yeah. And that's a record that stood for, Eddie broke it 10 years ago, and it it stood for another 10 years, but it had stood before Eddie broke it. It stood for like 20 years. Humans are not geared to be that strong. I mean, that you got to look at, the progression in performance enhancements. Just saying that's a thing that they use that, breakthroughs in training, things like that. That's why it took so long to do that. But
Well, look how many
like
videos
that,
there are of power lifters that have gotten the weight like up to their chest and a knee give out.
mhm.
Because our bodies really aren't designed to handle that kind of weight.
No. Well, and we don't have the load bearing. That's what they talk about. You have to work into something like that. You couldn't. It's like the Captain America thing. If you suddenly woke up one day with Captain America's power and was able to bench press a Buick like he can, if you didn't work into it and work your joints and your ligaments into it, you still wouldn't be able to lift that weight, because you might be strong enough physically, but you have to work your joints into being able to handle that load.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the great apes, they're designed that way. They're designed for that kind of strength. I mean, I've seen videos where they've taken did static strength tests with silverback gorillas, moving like massive amounts of weight, like 220, 230 pounds with one arm. Like it's
nothing.
Boys, did you see that picture that was floating around the internet like last week? You know how we found deer parts up in a tree? Somebody posted an image that I believe was taken, I think in Canada. A tree that had been broken off at about 12 foot had an entire moose on top of it.
Oh,
yeah. I think you sent me that picture.
Yeah, I don't know what I did with the image. I'd be showing it, but yeah, I sent that to Robbie. I'm like, Jesus, look at the size of this thing. It was a full-grown moose cow.
You didn't send it to me. You don't love me.
I think I put it in a group chat.
I think you did. Yeah, you did. And so, bro, you think about it. A moose, those things weigh 1,200 pounds, 13, 14, 15 upwards. It's the size
to
of
put that on top of about a 12 foot up on
Yeah.
a tree where they'd broken it off. Yeah, that strength is incredible.
That's nuts. Crazy.
Yeah, last time I checked, Bullwinkle can't fly. Rocky could, but Bullwinkle couldn't.
And Rocky the Flying Squirrel ain't hauling his ass up there, that's for sure. Hokey smokes, Bullwinkle.
Hey, Rocky, let's get up on top of this tree.
So how many creatures do you think were attacking that canyon at the Ape Canyon incident?
Well, I mean,
There had to have been several.
They were hitting it from all sides, and
on top. So
it had to have been at least 4 or 5.
Yeah,
Wouldn't you think?
and I'd say there's probably one back coordinating the movements, because this is the thing. Well, this is the thing that was coordinated. That was a coordinated attack pattern. That was not.
That was intelligent.
Random. Yeah,
that was intelligent.
That was systematically testing for weaknesses, trying to find a way in.
Well, rock throwing is known primate behavior.
Yep.
So just being devil's advocate here, so we can say it wasn't a case of mistaken identity on a bear.
Sure.
Bears don't throw rocks, and bears don't get up on the roof and walk around, and bears don't tend to reach through the chinking to try to grab something.
Right.
So
Right.
I
And bears
think
don't have
it's
a
pretty
19
safe to say this was not a case of mistaken identity.
Right. And bears don't have a freaking 19-inch humanoid footprint either.
No.
Exactly.
So
And what are the odds that in the middle of the night, another group of humans would find this remote cabin in the butt crack of nowhere out in this valley, miles from the nearest road, and decide, you know what, we're going to mess with these guys who are likely armed and will shoot at us?
yeah, I'd say slim to none, and Slim's going to lunch on that one. That's a lot. That's a lot of activity, man. And and the way they describe the arm and everything.
And it had literally grabbed something. I think it grabbed a shovel or a pickaxe, and they smacked it in the arm or shot it in the arm to keep it from pulling it out through the.
Oh man, I'm just thinking the Evil Dead. Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, and that had to have scared every living crap out of them. You know, as far as their stress response and everything like that. So definitely something to think about.
Yeah. So,
Crazy.
are you guys on the same thought pattern I am? That if he hadn't have taken that shot, they probably wouldn't have gotten attacked.
I think they probably would have still got messed with, but nowhere on the scale that
Exactly.
that it ended up being.
Yeah, they still would have got rocks thrown at them, don't you think, Robbie?
Yeah,
They still got harassed just because they're on their turf, you know?
and you may have had some door shakes, maybe some smaller rocks hitting the cabin that night. Just to
Right.
kind of rattle the cage, so to speak. But I don't think it would have been as as intense
Right,
as
absolutely.
it ended up being.
Absolutely.
So, do you think this was a territorial thing or revenge?
I think it started out territorial.
Yes, what Robbie said. I think it started out the former and ended up the latter.
Then graduated to the latter.
Revenge indicates high intelligence because most animals
100%.
don't hunt for revenge.
That's an intelligent response. Absolutely.
So even if whatever side you come down on the Bigfoot argument, whether it's a hominid, whether it's a primate, but primate and hominid are not mutually exclusive terms.
Here's the thing, DA. There have been animals that have done that, but they've all have one thing in common. They're all highly intelligent. Killer whales, wolves, big cats, Bigfoot possibly, all extremely intelligent animals that have very, very high intelligence. I mean, killer whales have been compared, on human level intelligence in some capacities, maybe even more in some cases, depending on what you're talking about. Wolves are very, very intelligent and very pack oriented, very coordinated. Same thing with big cats, things like that are highly intelligent do that.
Tell you something else that'll come after you for straight up revenge: ravens and crows.
Yeah. Dude,
you piss those birds off, they will harass you.
I mean, that shows sentience, man. That shows awareness.
But what are ravens and crows? They're some of the most intelligent birds
100%
of the species.
100%, absolutely.
Yeah, there are members of a group of birds called corvids.
The corvids
and blue jays are a member of that group.
Yeah, blue jays are.
And blue jays will hound you too if you mess with their nest.
I've had the crap pecked out of me by blue jays and the kid getting too close to a nest.
Blue jays are jackasses, and blue jays will also they'll steal a nest. They'll roll up to a robin's nest or whatever and roll the eggs out and lay their own eggs, and then attack the robin when it comes back.
Yeah. So I definitely think we're talking about intelligence, which a bear would not have done. We're looking at primate behavior with the rock throwing. We're looking at a consistent description from 5 eyewitnesses that did not vary. And so, looking at the behaviors and all of this, I think this is a highly credible event. And I think it's one of the best and earliest examples, especially when involving multiple eyewitnesses, that this is truly one of our more rock solid Bigfoot sightings.
I agree. That's crazy.
What do y'all think?
Who, us?
No, I was meant the audience. William Nighthawk says, we don't worry about the crows because they ride in the back of the pickup on Riz land.
That's hilarious.
Something tells me we're not talking about the same crows.
Yeah, brother William, I think that's a different set of crows, man.
Lima, I think maybe a little of both, but I think from all of the encounter reports we've collected over the years and stories we've heard, I think it certainly indicates that there is a high level of intelligence and organization in Sasquatch.
I agree. Concur wholeheartedly, sir.
And we're just talking about the species in general, not every single one of them, because you've got people who are geniuses, and you got people who, as he said, were dumb as a bag of hammers. Just because, I'm sure there are killer whales out there who would swim backwards if they could, just because they don't know what they're doing. There's cats that don't survive in the wild because they don't pick up what they're supposed to, learn what they're supposed to. So,
Right.
but I think in general, as a whole, it's a very intelligent species.
Brian Barber says, do you guys think they leave the woo out of this for the most part because there's such a credible encounter that they worry the woo will take away from it? Honestly, I've read multiple versions of this encounter, and all of them are fairly consistent with the details. But I don't really remember reading anything that I would consider woo. Just that the shot was taken and they responded from that. So if you've read a version of the story that has something weird in it, I'd like to read it. But like I said, I've read multiple versions of this story, and none of them had anything I would consider remotely.
Yeah, the
wooish.
biggest differences I've ever heard, like you said, one of them actually says they felt like it hit it, and the others, like the one that Doc read, where he took the shot and the canyon answered.
Yeah. Poncho says the level of intelligence, accuracy, and rock throwing ability to vanish just seems to be more than primate. Not necessarily. Never underestimate an animal's ability to disappear in the wild. I mean, look how long it took them to even capture a footage of the billy ape. And that doesn't have any supernatural abilities. It's just a massive version of a chimp, 6 feet tall and highly aggressive. It wasn't until National Geographic accidentally caught them on camera while looking for something else that Western science even admitted they existed. So the killer ape theory certainly has some credence. And that was an animal that it was part of the natural world, but was just damn good at hiding. So I don't think it necessarily, means that there's some supernatural element to them disappearing and when the daylight came, or their ability to hide. I just think they're very good at it.
Well, and let's look at that area. Let's look at the geography of that area. That place is riddled with volcanic caves.
But there again, what the natives, hey, these things are out there. Oh, y'all are crazy. No, they're out there. We see them all the time. No, y'all are crazy.
Yeah,
they're out there. No, y'all. Oh, yeah, they are out there. Just like our Native Americans say the same thing. They're out there all the time. No, y'all are crazy. No, they're out there. We see them all the time. It's just, and I go back to the deer hunting. I've been a deer hunter for my entire life and have shot 2 deer in my entire life. Would we say 15 million or 30 million deer population in the United States? How many deer hunters go the entire season without seeing a deer? There's a 30 million deer known population in the United States, and how many deer hunters go an entire season and not see a deer?
Correct.
Right. William Nighthawk says, I think if we can separate the flesh and bone cryptid from supernatural, it's best. I agree.
100% agree.
Because, and I'm not trying to disparage anybody's beliefs on this, but the more we ascribe a supernatural element to these things, when, like we've shown examples of like the doll sheep video, natural camouflage abilities, or even the Freeman film, I think when we start ascribing supernatural abilities to this, we lose a chunk of the population that was already on the fence on whether or not to believe anyway, because it's a lot harder to convince somebody that this creature is supernatural than it is to even convince them it exists. So I think that by ascribing, like supernatural abilities to these things, a lot of people, their eyes will just glaze over. And I'm not saying they don't have supernatural abilities, but I will tell you, yeah, go out in the woods sometime. I would challenge anybody that wanted to do it. Let me talk to a buddy of mine who's an Army Ranger, and we'll take him out to the Mark Twain National Forest and give him an hour head start and confine him to a 10-mile area, and I'll give you $100 if you can find him. And that's just a guy that learned how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
We can teach us how to do it. They've been practicing it their entire lives.
Right. Hillary says, after the Ape Canyon incident, Fred Beck was openly into the paranormal, seances, ghosts. Well, yeah, because he just saw a creature that, that science said doesn't exist. So it probably opened his mind to a lot of possibilities of things that are also out there. And I'm not saying that there isn't a supernatural element to Bigfoot or Dogman. What I am saying is it doesn't exist anywhere else in nature. Why would it exist in them? Just them. I think they are part of the natural world. Well, boys,
Yep.
you want to kind of segue over into the Honobia siege? Honobia. The siege at Honobia. Robbie, you want to run us through that one?
Sure thing. This happened back in 2000. In the fall of 2000, a family living near the woods of Honobia, Oklahoma, began noticing strange behavior from the dogs. Every night, the dogs would stare into the tree line, growling low, had their hackles raised up, just like constantly on edge, on alert. They refused to leave the porch and refused to approach the woods. And this is something I've always preached from being a canine handler. Always trust your dog. If your dog starts acting that way, there's probably something to it.
Yep.
The first family thought it was coyotes or maybe a big cat, something like that. But then they started hearing sounds. Sounds started coming into play. Heavy footsteps circling the property, slow, deliberate pacing, wood knocks echoing through the trees, low guttural growls that didn't sound like any animal that they knew. One night, the father and several relatives stepped outside with flashlights. The beams were cutting through the darkness and caught a massive hair-covered figure standing near the edge of the yard. It had broad shoulders, long arms, and its eyes were reflecting the light of the flashlights. The men fired warning shots, not at the creature, but near it. The creature didn't run, and it didn't even flinch. It simply stepped backwards into the darkness and vanished. The next night, everything escalated. So here we go again. They didn't even shoot it. They shot at it.
Mm-hmm.
Then here comes the escalation. Multiple creatures approached the house. The family could hear them moving around the property, circling, pacing, tapping on the siding. Something large brushed against the walls. Something else peered in through the window. Its silhouette filling the whole window frame. The men grabbed rifles and took defensive positions inside the house. The creatures approached the porch again, and there was multiple of them. The family at that point opened fire. The creatures scattered into the trees, but they didn't leave. They regrouped in the tree line and stayed there for hours just watching them. The siege continued for several nights. The creatures returned again and again, circling the house, tapping on the windows, pacing the yard. The family barely slept. The dogs refused to go outside. They said the woods felt alive and hostile. Eventually, the activity tapered off, but the family never forgot those nights.
This story, the siege at Honobia, has a kind of a special place in my heart because I know one of the family members. I know them personally, and I'm not going to say their name on the air. I made that promise a long time ago, but I met him shortly after this happened. We talked a lot, especially online. We exchanged a lot of messages, and I even invited him on the show, and he's like, "Nope, I've been made fun of and ridiculed for so many years over this. I'm not going on any more shows. I'm not talking about it. If you want to talk about it, fine. If you want to write a book about it, fine, but I'm not getting involved." I'm like, okay, I can respect that. So I will not mention his name, but I know him to be a very straightforward, very, very no nonsense kind of guy. I don't think he would make this story up. And I can tell you from being down in the Kiamichi Mountains, that area is a hot spot. And I've been in the Kiamichis at night, and that is a creepy, creepy place. And I don't say that about a whole lot of places. I mean, I've been in lots of places where I'm like, okay, this is kind of weird. But the Kiamichis, that whole area, which covers, I think, a couple hundred square miles, the whole place feels like Moon Valley, Doc.
Mm.
All of it.
Mm.
And it don't feel better when you get back in the car.
Mm.
And in fact, it feels like, I should start this damn thing and just get out of here.
Which is what I would do. Quickly. Post haste even.
And this didn't happen just over a couple of days. This happened over a period of weeks. At one point, they actually abandoned the house and went and stayed with family. They invited people out from a certain organization that I won't name, and I guess from what happened, what would happen when that organization arrived, sent some investigators out there. When the things hit the house, those guys packed their crap up and left. They're like, nope, we're not dealing with this. And they bugged out of there. And so, that particular organization did not help them in any way, shape, or form. They figured out that there toward the end that what these things were truly after in the first place was these guys were serious deer hunters. That's how they help feed their family. If you live in a poor area where you ain't got a whole lot of resources and your family don't make much money, I can tell you that's how I grew up. Our freezer was always full of deer and squirrel and wild turkey and whatever else we could hunt, hunt or catch, fish, filleted out, fish that we'd caught and filleted out. That's how we ate. And there's not a whole lot of folks that understand that unless you grew up like that.
Right.
It's not like you don't have the money to pop down to the local Walmart and pick up food for the night. If you didn't shoot it, you might not eat that night. So that's how they kept their family fed. And these things were breaking into their shed, which was padlocked, and taking deer meat out of their deep freeze. And eventually they had to move it into the house. And when they did that, that's when they started trying to get into the house.
So they were pissed that they lost a food source.
They had food plots out all over because it was a big chunk of land. The land's still in the family. They never sold it. But I don't believe anybody lives in that house anymore. But they had to go out and basically dig up their food plots to try to keep the deer away from the house, because that's what they finally found out was keeping them close to the house, was all the deer.
Hmm.
And they put out multiple food plots of snow peas.
Yeah.
And I tell you, if y'all don't know much about putting out food plots, snow peas are like crack for deer. They love that.
Yeah. My daddy used to plant a sacrificial patch of corn and clover and snow peas in our back pasture just so the deer wouldn't come and mess with our regular corn.
Just a guy? No, they had no idea they were even out there. They weren't gifting them. My guess is what they might have mistaken for gifting was gut piles, because these guys would field dress out a deer, leave the guts out in the middle of nowhere, bring the deer back to the house. And these things follow that smell of that fresh blood right up to the house.
That's interesting. Very interesting. Wow.
And these were good folks, and they literally got ran off their land because of it.
Well, I mean, that's just like we were talking about here. I mean, think about how psychologically damaging that is to these isolated families, these rural families. And I mean, dude, they've worked their whole life, or they put their whole livelihood in all this stuff, and now these critters are running them off, and that's got to mess with you. You know what I mean?
This is like the Ape Canyon incident. This is multiple eyewitnesses, along with a group from a certain Bigfoot organization that witnessed the activity, along with law enforcement witnessed the activity. Neighbors witnessed it because they were having something similar go on for the farms around them. Wow. And their sister, who came out to visit them, had her kids in the car. She got out of her car to open the gate, and these things rushed her.
Holy shnikes.
With her kids in the car, she dove back in the car and basically punched the gate open and drove up to the house honking her horn. Oh, White says we got 5 minutes.
Right on.
But yeah, boys, this one to me really stands out.
Yeah, it does.
because this is one that escalated, and it wasn't just the one night in Ape Canyon. This went on for months.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's a little bit. I mean, it was bad leaving all that your prospecting equipment and things like that, but they had a life to go back to. These people they left their home.
That is their life. Yeah.
Different than leaving. Yeah, that was a lot of money, and it's it's a big setback. But how do you leave your home and your land and, like Doc said, stuff that you've poured your heart and soul into?
Yeah.
But you come to a point where, okay, if we stay here, these things going to kill us.
They at one point before they finally gave up and pulled up stakes, they sent their kids to live with a relative miles away to get them out of the house, because their intention was to make a stand, and the stand did not help. At one point, they said they shot one, and when it dropped, others crawled in and dragged it out.
So that's an intelligent response too.
And they said they believe they hit multiple ones, but they hit one in the gut, and it dropped and started groaning and bellowing. And they said they watched two others like low crawl up there, grab it, and drag it into the woods.
Well, that sounds familiar. Sounds like a scene I read in a book somewhere.
Well, life imitates art sometimes.
Yeah, that's true.
Or art imitating life.
That's true, though.
Like I said, man, I make no bones about it. I use encounter stories to help fuel the writing process. So a lot of research and real encounters go into writing how these creatures behave in my books, and that is definitely intentional.
100%.
So, the dogs. Robbie said, always trust your dogs.
Eggs.
So, Doc, let's say tonight you went to let little Doc out, and he stood on the porch and refused to go out in the grass to do his business and just stared in the darkness and growled.
Oh, we both peeing in the house that night. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. If he said,
well, you would have options in hand that they did not.
Correct.
You have night vision. You could go, okay, I'm going to find out what the hell's out here.
Well,
but these guys did not have this.
Well, and that would definitely be attached to something that's going to throw something a lot faster than a freaking rock, too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's just like Robbie said, and I've said it, and if your dog alerts on something or refuses, like if you got a tracking dog that pees down its leg, tucks its tail between his legs, and jumps back in the kennel, guess what, buddy? If that dog's refusing to do what it's bred to do, what it loves to do, you best listen to that dog.
And what about the theft of the deer meat and breaking into a locked shed?
Yeah.
I mean that definitely speaks of something that not only has hands, but has the intelligence to find where that deep freeze is at.
That's correct. I mean, that's like a larder for them. What do you say, Robbie?
Oh yeah, 100%. And that goes back to what we talked about intelligence, knowing where that's. I mean, obviously they can smell that, but they still, it's knowing, okay, I got to defeat this to get in there and get that, not just beat on the walls. I got to break this hasp off. I mean, not that they know it's a hasp, but you know what I'm saying.
They know it's standing in their way of getting what they want.
Yeah,
right.
Problem solving skills.
Yeah, which we have seen in apes.
Boys, it is 5 minutes till. We got to take a brief pause to pay some bills, and we will continue this conversation as soon as we get back. Let's hear a word from our sponsors, shall we?
We shall.
The Unx Network presents a health and wellness spiritually based brand of hemp-derived CBD products made by Hopewell Farm in Harrogate, Tennessee. We apply our Cathara energy work with all of our plants and products. Our products made in small batches with only 2 ingredients of pure hemp, full spectrum crude oil, and coconut-derived MCT oil. Third-party lab tested for potency and legal THC levels with 6 strengths of 1 ounce oil to choose from. Know what you're buying and get what you pay for from Hopewell Farm. Applied directly to a specific area, Hopewell Farm topical salve in 1 ounce and ½ ounce sizes made with pure hemp crude oil, comfrey extract, and all natural ingredients. Find the Hopewell Farm link and coupon code on the Unx Network website at unxnetwork.com. That's unxnetwork.com.
Hey everybody, this is Kerry Pocket Doc Davis from Dark Angel Medical, and you are listening to DA Ex Machina with DA Roberts. You may recognize me or some of my products from Dark Angel Medical in some of the Apex Predator, Lakeview Man, and Wild Hunt books, and you can get those products at www.darkangelmedical.com, along with training classes on how to use those products and save a life. Shoot us an email at info@darkangelmedical.com and be the difference.
The new book, How to Research a Haunted House by paranormal investigator Margie Kay and professional researcher Violet Wisdom, is now available from Unx Media. This one-of-a-kind book explains how to do research on a house with uncommon methods and resources used by historic home researchers, and how to determine who may be doing the haunting and why. How to Research a Haunted House can be used by homeowners, renters, investors, and it should be in the library of all professional paranormal investigators. Get this unique book at unxmedia.com or amazon.com. That's unxmedia.com or amazon.com. In the shadows of forgotten lore, where legends leave footprints and nightmares are written in blood. He's the voice of modern horror, the best-selling author and cryptid researcher, the name behind the nightmare. D.A. Roberts. Joining him in the field, renowned author and field investigator, the man who tracks what others fear to name. The cryptid hunter, the cast master, the one they call Robbie Jed Rains. And the voice of reason in the madness, the analyst, the investigator, the one who sees through the fog. Kerry Doc Davis. Together, they walk the edge of legend and reality. This is the Nightmare Hunter Podcast.
And we are back. Thank you guys for sticking with us, and hope you check out some of our fine affiliates, and we'll be talking about some of the other affiliates later toward the end of the show. But to jump right back in where we were, boys, the Honobia siege, like we said, this happened over a period of months. Definitely territorial display. It showed intelligence, and it was definitely dangerous. I mean, that unnamed Bigfoot organization bugged the hell out of there. Like, we are not equipped to deal with this.
Right. And not only that, talking about how, if we look at it from a behavioral standpoint, the multi-night patterns, were they doing, what we would know in the military as probing missions, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They're intelligence gathering. They're doing recce's, to observe what we call pattern of life, a POL, so we're looking at pattern of life, and they're looking around and they're peeking through windows, which is primate, right? It's primate based. Something they always do. I mean, what happened with Fred up in Alaska? What did they see? What did Robbie see? Yeah, exactly. So firsthand, the primate stuff, and their response to the gunfire. Yeah, they didn't shoot at them; they shot near them. But what happened after they shot at them?
It escalated.
Same thing that happened in the first encounter up in Ape Canyon. Same exact thing. So,
and again, this one hits a little closer to home to me because I know the guy, know one of the guys involved, and
wow,
he does not strike me as the kind of guy that would make this up. Much less the fact that local law enforcement were witness to it. Other family members and neighbors and a certain organization all were witness to this, and something very dangerous was happening on their property.
Yeah.
And that area is a hot spot for activity. In fact, it was right down. You remember that show that Rob Lowe did? I can't remember what it was called, where Rob Lowe was investigating weird things across the country.
Yeah, that's where him and his sons.
Down in the Kiamichis is where him and his sons were with that Bigfoot group, and they actually got in a gunfight with a group.
Yeah, they had an encounter.
Yeah, they had a violent encounter.
Yeah.
Rob Lowe was still quoted for saying, "We almost died."
Yeah. Yeah. He even told about it on like a late night show.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's talked about it quite a bit since then.
Was it Jimmy Kimmel or
one of
them?
Yeah, I would say it's safe to say that Rob Lowe is no longer sitting on the fence about whether he believes.
No.
And Robbie, from your standpoint as a tracker, I mean, what would you say their behavior was? People are like, oh, well, it's just teenagers messing with people or anything like that. How would you counter that?
We'll say that it wasn't really Bigfoot. It was just teenagers out there messing around.
Yeah.
Well, I would say if it was teenagers out there messing around after they fired that warning shot, it wouldn't have been teenagers out there continuing that, because they'd have been like, oh crap.
Right.
It just got real. So I say that X's that out right then and there.
Roxanne, the Kiamichis are in southeast Oklahoma, down near the Arkansas and Texas borders. It's pretty far from Missouri. It's the other side of Oklahoma from Missouri. So it's from here in Springfield to get to that area is about a 6-hour drive.
Yeah,
Isn't there a specific one they call it the Kiamichi monster or something like that? Because there's a certain guy
Kiamichi Giants. The Kiamichi Giants is what they call it.
There's a certain guy, and I can't remember the guy's name, but I used to watch a YouTube channel he did that he found all kinds of structures, like the I think he called them like trench structures. He'd find like a washout, like a gully, where something made like structures over the top of one of these little washout gullies, like where two saddles come together and the rain washes out deeper. They were making these little temporary structures underneath these washouts. I wish I remember the name of that guy's show. It was pretty cool, pretty interesting. I think I told you about it one time, DA, and you said, because that's when we got to talking about the Kiamichis, and you said, yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. That's when we got to talking about this one.
Miss Lene says is where the Battle of the Shield Wall happened. Yep. That is right down in the Kiamichi Mountains, right off, I think it's Broken Bow Lake.
Broken Bow Lake, yep.
William Nighthawk says, saying it was teens doing it is like saying someone walked 8 miles into the wilderness to rock stack or tree structure build.
No, absolutely.
Just on the off chance somebody stumbles across it.
No, and that's the thing about it. Is that's what I was getting at, because if from Robbie's tracking standpoint, like he said, if it was teenagers, they'd have got the hell out of Dodge real quick. But
especially when the bullets started flying.
Correct. What they do instead, they came back. But not only did they come back, they came back closer.
They escalated
closer. They escalated. What is it? What kind of behavior does that show?
Very intelligent and very cunning.
That's predatory.
Yeah.
Because, and that's the thing. If this happened over months and they got in multiple
Correct.
slinging lead at these things. If this is teenagers, what in the world kind of game are they playing when they're getting shot at and still
Exactly.
going back to this place? I mean,
Yeah.
hey, that was fun. Let's go back and get shot at again tonight.
Yeah. Let's get shot at again.
LS420. Yeah, I've heard of the kitsune. That's a Japanese cryptid. We actually think we talked
Kitsune.
about it one night before.
Yeah.
The kitsune.
Yeah, it's about a 12 and a half hour drive for me.
Would be a great place to go.
Yeah, that's a long way. It's 800 and
Guess what else? Guess what else is right down there in that same area?
the watch.
You remember when we talked about the Bigfoot war with the Tubby brothers?
Yeah.
Charge of
That
the light
one-
horseman.
Yeah, the Charge of the Light Horseman. That was right down there. Also, Brown Creek is down there.
Also, not far from the Heavener Stone either, right?
Nope, not too far from
That's
the
right.
Stone.
That's right. That North Stone. Yeah, they'd be calling to Brown. They'd be calling to Brown River for another reason if I saw something down there. So, show.
Did we had somebody at one time in the chat said they had some land up there that close to that if we ever got a expedition together that we could use their land, but I don't remember who that
I
was.
can't remember who it was. I'd have to go back through my email and see if I can find it. But yeah, I would definitely love to get down there.
That's interesting.
Wyatt says he's been to the Heavener Runestone. I want to go to it, Wyatt. I haven't been to it yet.
Lucky.
So, okay, just to play devil's advocate, how could we rule out bears with this? Because I personally don't believe it's bears, but let's go through it anyway. Let's go through the numbers. You know, how do we eliminate bears? How do we eliminate wolves? Let's eliminate what it could be.
What type of bears are in that area?
Black bears.
Black bears. Okay. How many times do you see a group of black bears working together?
I haven't.
Right.
Okay, so I mean, just off the cuff, that's one because that something looking in the window while something else is walking over here brushing against the wall while something else is up on the porch.
Right.
Is how they describe. So that's 3 black bears doing the same thing.
Right. So there's
staying
one
on 2
strike.
legs the whole time.
Yeah, working cohesively together.
Right.
A non-known pack animal that does not
Right.
work, collectively.
So
that we
there's
know of anyway.
So there's one strike. Let's look at it from another forensic standpoint. Forensically, the getting into the shed where the freezer was,
Breaking off the lock. Yeah.
there would be claw marks, right? There would definitely be claw marks.
They would have smashed through the door, not just
Yeah.
ripped it off its hinges.
Yeah, like I say, could a bear do that? Yeah, absolutely. A bear could
Oh,
have
of
got
course
in
it
there.
could, yeah.
But like Doc said, there's going to be claw mark because a bear's not going to be able to reach up and grab it and pull it off. It's going to
It's going to paw at it.
paw it off. Yes, it's going to paw it off. Or like
Yeah.
DA said, it's just going to stand up on there and just kind of.
Now,
Exactly.
I've
like
seen
that.
bears get into sheds, but
Yeah.
Robbie's exactly right. They'll get up there and they'll rock their
They do
weight
that
on it,
rocking thing
and
until
eventually, shove it through.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen
That's
plenty
not
of
that's not
videos
how this was done.
of how they push trees over like that.
Exactly. And just like William Nighthawk just said, absolutely, brother, hands, not paws. And we would have seen some sort of forensic evidence stating, indicating otherwise.
And bears don't low crawl up to pull one of their wounded buddies out.
Correct. Not unless they're going to eat him. I don't know.
And from what the sister and her kids said, what charged them was multiple creatures that tried to surround the car.
Phew-wee. Damn. Good God, man.
And she dove back in the car and drove through the gate, blaring her horn, running up to the house. And they come running out with guns, and of course they backed off then. But the sister's fair certain that had she not been paying attention and her kids hadn't started screaming, they probably would have got her.
Dude, that gives, I'm not even there, and that gives me the pucker. You know what I'm saying? Good Lord, son. Whew.
So again, there's just too many witnesses involved, including local law enforcement and game wardens. I forgot to mention game wardens. They called game wardens, ask them, what the hell is this and what do we do about it? And the game wardens were like, This is not something we normally deal with. We can't tell you what to do about it, but if I were you, I'd leave. And they're like, well, this is our land. We're not leaving. And then things kept getting worse.
And that right there is telling anyway. If a game warden said, well, we don't know what to do, you should leave. Game warden's not going to tell you to leave your property if it's something like bears or
Right.
cougars or wolves. They're going to be like
telling right there by what their response to it.
Yeah.
What
I
William
think you
said.
should leave.
William says, in the old days, low crawling was part of the yearly games we natives and the Bigfoot used to play. Williams tribe he's Lakota, and that's the perfect example. Different tribes describe these things in different ways.
Yep.
The Lakota called him, I believe it was Shigetanka, which means big elder brother. But there are other tribes that just talk about these things being absolutely brutal, like the Choctaw. The Choctaw allegedly fought a war with them. The Tubby brothers, the light horseman charge. We did a couple of shows on that. Probably ought to revisit that topic at some point, see what else we can dig up on it. But there are lots of documented incidents where these things have not only been actively like trading and engaging with tribes, but then other incidences they were stealing people and attacking the tribes. So I think regionally these things vary in temperament. And I think a lot of it has to do with their interaction with that tribe too.
Mm-hmm.
That's
clearly intelligent.
That's fascinating.
So I think, again, like the Ape Canyon thing, after they took a shot, even though they were warning shots, I think that's when things truly started to escalate.
I would concur, sir.
But if I lived out in the middle of nowhere like that and I had those things on my land, I don't know that I would have done it different, especially if I didn't know what I know. If I just thought I had some weird things coming around my house trying to get in with my kids, you bet your ass I'd be trying to put one down.
That's why I have a belt fed. Just saying. Everybody's going to get some love.
You get around and you get around and you get around.
Everybody gets them around. But the fact that these things didn't retreat, in fact, that they upped the game after the guns came into play,
right?
That says these things were determined to do somebody an injury.
Well, absolutely. Not only did they not retreat, they got closer.
Just throwing this out there because I saw somebody earlier talking about when Doc was talking about, the PLA and them studying us and things like that. Let's say that I don't know what type of weapons they were using. Let's just say they were using the standard hunting rifle and hunting round in the United States, which is a 30-30.
That's exactly what I was thinking, Robbie. Exactly.
So what? If these things eat the deer, they know how the deer. Maybe they knew what kind of weapons these people had, and they weren't scared of them because generational memories, things like that. Or this, who's to say these weren't Stonish giants, Genosklas, and they had some kind of armor.
Ooh,
so they weren't worried about. I mean, just spitballing and throwing something out there.
Well, look how close the Kiamichi Mountains are to the big thicket of Texas, and there have been Gugway sightings there.
That's what I was just about to say, DA, because that's right from the big thicket in East Texas.
Because if you look at the big thicket of East Texas, the swampy area around Fouke, Arkansas, and the Kiamichis, that's all part of the same watershed. In fact, when you're driving into the Kiamichis, you cross the Boggy Creek.
Well, what was the only track that was recovered during that time was a three-toed track, which has been constantly attributed to Gugway.
The Genoskwa or the Gugway or the Honey Island Swamp Monster.
And what about the Fouke Monster? Didn't the Fouke Monster have three toes?
No, one of the tracks found in Fouke.
One of the tracks they found was three-toed.
Yep, that's what I thought.
So, but that
William's got a good comment. When you go camping, do you set your tent up on a grizzly den entrance? No, you avoid them just like Bigfoot does with humans. But in this case, with this family, this was This was for dominance. They wanted that territory, probably because of the big populations of deer.
I learned so much on this show,
Well,
even as a participant, as a host, a co-host. But I learned so much, and it's
well, it's
fascinating.
same here, because things like I just said about the gun, that just literally came to me when we're sitting here talking about it. I'm like, well, I wonder if that's something that they understand, that the weapons that these people were carrying were not going to hurt them. Maybe they knew the yardage. I mean, I know that's a huge leap about how intelligent they may be, but if they've witnessed them taking deer down, and they witnessed the damage that it does to deer, and they're like, or some of them have been shot before, and they know that that's not something that it might sting. It might piss them off, like us getting shot with a BB gun or a high-powered pellet rifle. You may get a...
Yeah, but the risk of infection would be pretty high.
Right, but I mean, I'm just throwing something out there. Why did it not flinch when the gunfire went off?
Yeah, and also let's think about this too. This was, what year was this? This was 2000. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is rural area. Yes.
Very rural.
Okay, so
even to this day, still very rural.
So the sounds of gunshots to them are probably not unfamiliar or a foreign thing.
Well, look how many times we've said that, that was ringing the dinner bell when you take a shot.
Right. But also people out there target shooting, sighting their deer rifle in, all this kind of stuff. So it may not necessarily be it's not a foreign sound to them. So they're not going to have oh shit, we better run type reaction. Right. You know what I mean? They're like, okay, well, they're not shooting at us.
William Nighthawk says game is a fighting reason between native and Bigfoot. So yes, it's a cause of aggression.
And especially,
I think it all came down to a territorial aggression over those herds of deer.
And if they're sitting there going, hey, you bastages, y'all are taking food from us out of our deer herds and put it in your freezer, so we're going to steal your food from you, just like you've been stealing it from us.
Well, they kept more of the deer than a lot of people would. They kept liver. They kept some of the awful meats, because country folks, a lot of folks will eat those. I mean, I've had deer heart and stew. It's pretty good, especially if you cook it till it tenders up some. St. liver's the same way. It just got a very, very, very powerful flavor. So some of those internal organs are still on the menu, and deer liver is a big part of their diet, from what I've read.
A lot of iron.
Because not only is deer liver full of nutrients, it's also good for your night vision.
Yeah, they can have all they want.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of them, but if it's that or starved, I'm going to eat it.
Yeah, and William corroborated what I just said. He's like, exactly, Doc. Hence all the break-ins in the freezers and coops.
Mm-hmm. And this story is not the first time I've heard of them getting into deep freezes. In fact, Uncle Buddy had stuff go missing out of his deep freeze.
No crap.
On more than one occasion.
Mm-hmm.
Well, dog my cats.
Well, that cabin out in Snell Grove, they
had stuff go missing out of there.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yep.
Huh. Interesting. Very interesting. This is it. This is a good story.
Because they actually, I remember Doug talking about that when he was on the show with us.
Doug Hychek.
Because they at first they thought it was a bear that got in, and so they got local bear expert or game warden, whatever, come in there, and he said, I've never seen a bear do this to a deep freeze. And remember, that's when they had the little board with all the screws on it. Mm-hmm. And Dr. Meldrum actually traced around, and it was I think it was like a 19-inch track that they traced it around where
that was a big track.
Wow.
Where it caught,
but it was so old and degraded they couldn't get any DNA off.
They sent it to Todd DeSotel in New York, and he said that if it'd been maybe they got there a month earlier, he might would have been able to pull something out of it, but it was just barely over the.
Wyatt, it's funny you should mention that, because that's a beautiful segue into the next segment.
Yeah.
But before we go into that next segment, boys, I think, I'm again, I admit I'm a little biased on this because I know some of the folks involved. I truly believe this is a credible encounter story. I believe that they had Bigfoot on their property. What about you boys?
100%.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, and from multiple people, you know, and the sister who just showed up with her kids, and she's getting chased
Plus,
by these critters.
neighbors having stuff come up missing,
Right.
game wardens and
Yeah.
cops witnessing
Yeah.
it.
She ain't got no dog. She ain't got no dog in the fight. You know, all she was just like, "What the hell?" I was getting the gate, and all of a sudden, I'm getting bum rushed by these critters.
And what logical reason would a game warden have for saying, "I don't know what this is. You need to get out of here"?
Correct.
That's not a standard law enforcement answer.
That's not a game warden
No.
response, dude.
You don't tell somebody, "Oh, well, you need to leave your house. You need to
Right.
leave your land and property."
Leave everything behind. You just need to
Get
leave.
the hell out of here. I don't know what
Right.
those
Which-
are. You might want
which
to pack
tells me-
up and go.
Which tells me they did know what they were dealing with. But
Correct.
that was just a standard answer. We don't know. We're not. This is not something we deal with. I think you
Yeah.
need to leave.
Yeah, that was their canned response right there.
That was the shut up and color response.
Yes. Yes. This next one happened in my home state, which is kind of rad.
Yeah, well, I'll do the intro into this one. And Wyatt, thanks for kind of poking us in the right direction. The next one we're going to be talking about, the story was originally broken by Dark Waters on his channel, and there's been some debate on whether or not this is a true story. I've had some people that claim they're from that area that say no, I've never heard anything like this. And I've talked to a couple people who are from Taylor itself, and they said, oh yeah, and not only is it happened before, it's still ongoing. I've talked to a trucker who had nearly had one get in his cab of his truck with him, right outside Taylor, Mississippi. He pulled over on the side of the road for the night to get some sleep, and it tried to get in his cab. There are YouTube clips of news stories from Taylor, Mississippi, where there's still livestock mutilations happening out there on the regular. So Taylor, I do believe, is an active area. The people that said, oh no, I've ever heard anything like that, are probably the same kind of folks that said, I've been deer hunting my whole life in this one stand of woods and I've never seen one, so Bigfoot doesn't exist. So we've kind of covered that before, but when we get into this, this is known as the Siege of Lockett Ranch. Back in the 1940s, the Lockett family lived on a small ranch outside Taylor, Mississippi. They raised hogs and chickens and cattle. Life was pretty simple and quiet and predictable until the livestock started turning up dead. At first, it was just chickens. They'd find them torn apart, feathers scattered everywhere. Then hogs. Hogs were disappearing or found ripped apart. Bones snapped like twigs. Then a calf was basically disemboweled, had all its organs removed but not eaten. No signs of typical predation, no drag marks, no signs of feeding. These animals were just being torn apart. Something was killing for some reason besides hunger. Then one night, the father of the Lockett family heard movement near the hog pen. He stepped outside with a lantern and a shotgun, and light caught something tall, impossibly tall, standing near the fence. It kind of looked like a man, but had the head of a wolf, with a long snout, pointed ears, and eyes that reflected the lantern light back at him. The creature growled at him, deep and scary, so he shot at it. And the creature didn't fall. It didn't even run. It just stepped back into the shadows, and it was gone. And it didn't show any sign of being afraid of him at all. It was the one he referred to as the Big Gray. And then the next night, the siege started. The family heard multiple creatures moving around the house. Heavy footsteps, claws scraping on the walls, growls circling the property. The dogs hid under the porch and refused to come out. And then the violence kicked up. The family had allowed a logging company to come out and log a certain parcel of their land. And the loggers come running out of the woods. They're like, we're not going back in there. There's something down there. So they decided to go down there and flush out whatever was down in this section of the woods. So they go down this little logging road deep in the woods behind the back of their property, armed to the teeth, and ended up basically dropping what they had and running for their lives because they basically wandered into a nest. And then after that, it was on. They would see literally, numerous of these creatures coming up in their fields. They would be standing in broad daylight. They'd see them standing in the crops, staring at them. And then they started trying to get like full on get in the house. So Mr. Lockett got his kids and his wife, and he sent them to live with relatives. And he called in his farm hands, and he goes, "Boys, we're going to put this to an end." And it ended up they boarded themselves, barricaded themselves in the house, and these things came anyway. And at one point, they actually dug underneath the foundation of the house and were coming up through the floorboards. They were smashing into the walls hard enough it was knocking pictures off. So by the time morning came and the Lockett family decided, this is it, we're done. The house was leaning; it was already coming apart. One of them had like come up through was coming up through the floor in the kitchen, and they were shooting through the floor to keep it from coming into the house. They finally said, "All right, fine, you win," and then left. And allegedly, the farm's still there, but it's all fallen down. Nobody owns it. Well, I would assume the Lockett family still owns it, or the state does because of taxes. But nobody farms it. Nobody's going back to live there, and even the locals avoid the area. And to me, it's just terrifying because these things were so organized in the way they attacked.
Yeah.
They attacked as a pack. There was an obvious leader, the one they called the Big Gray. They would test the doors and then move to another section and test that section. And they eventually did abandon the ranch entirely, let the land go fallow, and all of the livestock was gone. It ruined that family.
I'd like to go up there. I mean, that's about from where I grew up, Mississippi. That's about a little over 200 miles, about 3.5 hours north of me. So that wouldn't be, honestly, where I grew up is not what
Taylor's pretty central in Mississippi.
It's kind of north in Lafayette County. Lafayette County is kind of north up north a little bit, but it's not far from you. DA, are you, Robbie? It's not.
It's about as far from me as it is from here to LBL. It's 6-7 hours, I believe.
Yeah, I was going to say it's about probably less than an 8-hour trip for y'all to get down to North Mississippi, because Robbie could cut through Tennessee, come down through Knoxville, cut through Huntsville, Alabama, Tuscaloosa, and cut across Starkville and then drop down.
I got family in Pierre Park and I can't think of. I've got some family that live in New Orleans, which I'm sure that's. But how far from there? From
like, let's just say, what'd you say? Pierre Park, Mississippi?
No, Louisiana.
Boys, if it's close to where Doc grew up, that means it's close to where that dog video was taken.
Robbie, Pierre Park is way south of there. You're talking like Taylor, Mississippi is not far.
It's only like an hour or two from Memphis.
Yeah, it's not far from. That's just what I was looking at from Memphis.
I was just curious. I was curious if it was closer to me or closer to them. Yeah. So it'd probably be closer from.
It's an hour and 24 minutes. It's 87 miles from Memphis. Because you take basically Taylor over to I-55, and I-55 shoots you right up into Memphis.
I think I'm 4.5 hours from Memphis.
Okay. Yeah, you're not far at all, man. If it's an hour and a half from Memphis, however far, but Robbie, you would come in, across. Yeah. Hell, you might even cut through like Corinth,
Yeah, I'm only like maybe
that is
2.5.
That is some wild and woolly territory too.
I wouldn't mind going up there.
I'd love to.
I think. I'm not, like I said, when we moved back to Mississippi, that's up near. Honestly, okay, it's close to. It's actually not far from Tupelo. It's just west of Tupelo.
If we could find an old plat map of the area from the 40s, I bet the Lockett Ranch would be labeled on it.
Well, all you got to do is go to the county courthouse.
Look for plat maps.
It's Lafayette County, Mississippi. So Lafayette County Courthouse, and you can get the plats for that stuff. They got it in the records.
I wonder if I could email them and request a copy.
Maybe.
If I could get them to send me a PDF of the plat map from the 1940s,
Couldn't hurt to
I
ask.
would be willing to bet the Lockett Ranch would be labeled on.
Hell, they may even send you a photocopies because I got all my great granddaddy's Civil War muster records and his POW stuff and everything. So yeah.
And you said that's Lafayette County?
It's Lafayette County, Mississippi. Yeah.
I'm writing this down.
Wyatt said you could meet him in Harrison and y'all could drive on in.
Yeah. The county seat for Lafayette County is, it's Oxford. So Ole Miss.
Oxford?
Oxford. Yeah. That's where Ole Miss is. William Faulkner, Ole Miss.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Incidentally, Bones McCoy from Star Trek said he graduated medical school from Ole Miss.
That's cool. That's where my nephew graduated medical school. That's pretty awesome. We got a long line of healers. I didn't know that. That's a good little Trekkie trivia. Yeah, Lockett Ranch. I mean, what do y'all think? Do y'all think it's folklore, or do y'all think it may be folklore based in some truth, or what? I mean,
I've had the opportunity, because remember back when I was in the hospital with all the heart issues?
Yeah.
Dark Waters called me every day to check on me.
Well, that's nice.
I've had a lot of conversations with the man. I like the guy. He's a super nice guy, and he took the time out of his busy schedule to call me every day to see how I was doing when I was recovering. And when he and I talked about it quite a bit, I said, there's a lot of folks that say you just made that story up. He said, well, there's folks that say I made up my Dogman encounter story where I encountered one in New Orleans. He said, I'm telling you, this comes from research, not from me making this story up. He said I had to put some of the details together myself. He said, but these stories came to me from multiple sources. So I truly believe. I believe the man when he said that he didn't make the story up.
I mean,
I think he's the one that broke it. I think it was just local folklore until he got a hold of it.
Right. And so he did a deep dive on it and researched it.
Sure did.
Yeah. He's a good dude. Solid cat.
Yep.
So we can rule out the whole folklore context, and I mean, what sticks with me is what Robbie was talking about and what you were talking about, DA, is about the whole decision of that family to literally just uproot, pull chocks, get the heck out of Dodge.
Because apparently they owned a considerable amount of land.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And, my great grandfather owned about 180 something acres. When you own land back then, that you didn't just give it away. You didn't just leave it.
Right. That was your livelihood.
Yeah.
That's
I
right.
mean,
That's right.
I remember the day my great grandfather died, him, because they did stuff with a handshake back then. Him and my Uncle Leonard being the oldest one of his 3 kids, him saying, Leonard, don't sell my place. Don't sell my land. No, Daddy, I wouldn't do that. I promise you, Daddy, I won't do that. And I mean, because that was something. That land was supposed to stay in the family.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, because that's
I
all
believe
they
it was
had.
in the
That's
early
the only
40s, Josh. If I remember correctly, it was like 1942.
Yeah, that's the only possessions they had was their land. That was their legacy, was their land. Because my dad, the same thing happened to my dad, because he grew up as a sharecropper son. His daddy was a sharecropper. They was poor as church mice. And so I grew up during the Great Depression. My grandpa died when my daddy was 5 in 1937. And so, whenever he went to Korea and came back, well, guess what all his older brothers and all had done? Split up the land and sold it all off. And you know what he got? Bupkis. Yeah, none of that. So yeah, that's the big thing back then. So you poured your heart and soul, your sweat, your essence everything in that land. That was your only possession, you know?
I think
Yep.
the one thing that I find most concerning about that whole incident is the fact that none of the animals were killed for food. They killed them just to kill them.
Which is what the wolf packs here that the dipsticks imported down here from Canada down into Colorado. They've been killing the piss out of calves on these ranches up here just for sport, just because.
Well, look at Meeker. How many of those cattle were killed and they weren't eaten?
They were just killed for sport.
Well, I think there's something more at work here. I think it was done as a message.
Could be, yeah, a warning. You're on our land. You're on our territory.
Because it escalated after those animals were getting killed,
Mm-hmm.
and the farmers, instead of taking note of the message,
Right.
they started taking pot shots at them, and then it escalated. It's kind of like,
they didn't take the hint, so they were like, okay, we got to step it up.
yeah.
Just a guy says there's some straight up psychotic Dogman. DA, did the descriptions of the Dogman scene any different than a typical sighting? My sighting that I had in LBL, I stick to this story till my dying day. It had a snout more like a mastiff or a Rottweiler. It was a blunter, like thicker jaws. But these were described as having the head of a wolf. So the sighting is fairly typical of some of the sightings. They also did describe yellow eye shine, and they described extremely aggressive behavior. And this is also one of the incidents where the history of that, there was a legend from the Choctaw about a war fought between Bigfoot and Dogman, and they believe that part in Taylor, Mississippi, may be part of the land that they fought over.
Yeah, there's a big Choctaw tribe, and some girls I went to high school with, they were all Choctaw. There's a big Choctaw tribe in Mississippi, man. It's a bunch of land there.
Because when they went out on that logging road deep onto the land, they found burial mounds.
And there you go again. Where do we typically see a lot of the Dogman activity? Around burial mounds.
Mm-hmm.
That's sacred ground to them, man.
So I find this to be a highly credible story.
That's interesting. I like that.
Doc,
yes,
here's a medical question for you.
Okay.
Robbie, you can chime in on this one because I know you know as well, but I want to get Doc from a medical side and Robbie, you from a more practical hunter's side. How hard is it to snap hog bones that have not been cooked? Raw, just straight out the leg.
Dang, man. I mean, it depends on are we talking like a femur, something like that?
The big bones in the body were found broken and sticking out of the wounds.
Okay, so let's think about it like this. So, like a human femur. Think about a human femur. I do remember this from one of my anatomy classes. A human femur can take anywhere from 1,500 to 3,000 pounds of energy to break. 3,000 pounds of force.
That's a lot of force.
That's
William. That sighting I had was in the north part of LBL back in 22.
Yeah. So I mean, if that puts it in context, I can't tell you for like a pig or anything like that, but I mean, I know I remember they said for a human femur, 1,500, so 3/4 of a ton to
force required to snap a hog femur. Bending force in a 3-point bending test. The force required to fracture a fresh pig femur typically ranges from 3.89 kN, which I'm assuming that's kilonewtons.
Yeah, kilonewtons. Yeah.
To 5.26, approximately 874 to 1,182 pounds of force.
That's a lot of force. That is a lot of force to just grab and break it.
And that's bending force. Compressive force, up to upwards of 1,600 pounds, or excuse me, 1,167 pounds. And it takes about 1,200 to 1,500 psi.
Okay, so let's think about this. I'm Googling some stuff. So for PSI, since you're talking about pounds per square inch, the Turkish Kangal dog holds the record for the strongest dog bite force, measuring an incredible 743 psi. So let's look at what gray wolf, because they said there was gray, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's
The
look
big one they referred to as the big gray.
gray wolf bite force, and it goes anywhere from 400 on the low end to over 1200 psi.
That's a lot of bite force.
I mean, from 743 for the biggest dog, the biggest our domestic canine, to 1200 psi. Phew. Dang.
So
That's a lot of force, son.
So a wolf that big would probably easily be able to break that femur.
Correct. I would postulate that. What, you, Robbie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this story is not the only time I've heard of cryptids going underneath the foundation and coming up in the house. The Bigfoot Outlaws show that used to be on that had Coonbo Baker and Bear in it. Coonbo and Bear talked about an elderly couple, I believe it was in Mississippi, that they were in the hospital. They were pretty elderly, and Bear and Coonbo went out to check on their ranch farm, and then when they found the doors to the house pulled off, they went inside and found where something had come up through the kitchen floor, and to get inside to get it whatever it wanted in there. But they went around to the side of the house, and then it actually dug underneath the foundation and got up in a crawl space, then busted their way into the house through the floor.
That is
so. That's
terrible.
Not the only time I've heard of that happening, but it happened there on the Lockett farm.
DA, our very talented cover artist, is in the chat.
Hi, Luca.
Hey, Luca. How you doing?
Y'all go check Luca's books out too, which most of y'all are saying that you have.
Yeah. How many books you got out?
I'll let her answer that question since she's in here, because
yeah, Luca, how many books you
a
got
lot.
out? We want to point folks to them.
Definitely. One of y'all mods, if you don't mind putting up the link to Luca's books, that would be awesome.
And thank y'all.
Thank you much.
All right, so we got about 18 minutes left. Well, actually, not even that.
Well, if we've only got 18 minutes left, we ain't going to cover all of this.
I know, man.
So we might go a little over 2 hours tonight, folks.
Lucas
which on Saturday night we can do.
Well, Lucas says, doing great over here. I think 11 or 12. Awesome.
Nice.
Hey, y'all, would y'all excuse me for one moment? I'll be right back.
All right, Doc, no problem.
Thank you.
So we might end up going a little over tonight, folks, because we still got quite a bit of material to cover. And the next couple of stories are Dogman stories, and it seems to me that when you deal with Dogman encounters, that they're a lot more violent than their Bigfoot counterparts. I'm not saying the Ape Canyon incident wasn't violent, that Honobia, Oklahoma wasn't violent, because they were, but the Dogman encounters are just horrifying. And that'll kind of take us right into the next one. Robbie, you want to give us the events behind the incident in Palmyra, Maine in 2007?
Yep, as DA said, 2007, Palmyra, Maine. In rural Palmyra, Maine, the Martin family lived in a quiet home surrounded by dense forest. Their driveway was very long, and their nearest neighbor lived a pretty good ways away. It was the kind of place where the woods pressed really close in and the nights felt really heavy. One evening, the family's dog began pacing and whining, staring at the tree line. The father stepped out with a flashlight and saw multiple sets of yellow eyes staring back at him from the woods. Not one pair, but several pair. He went back inside and locked the door, turned off the lights. Then the sounds began. They heard heavy footsteps circling around the house, branches snapping, something brushing against the siding, low growls that vibrated through the walls. The family gathered in the living room, terrified. Then a tall, wolf-headed creature stepped into the yard, walking on two legs. It moved slowly and deliberately like a predator assessing prey. 3 more creatures emerged from the tree line, spreading out around the house in a coordinated pattern. One approached the porch and sniffed the air. Then it placed a clawed hand on the railing. The father wanted to go get his guns, but they were in the barn since the wife didn't want them in the house. When he tried to go for them, the creatures came towards him, and he had to retreat back into the house. For hours, the creatures circled the house, scratching, growling, testing windows, testing doors. The family stayed awake until dawn, listening to the creatures move around them in the dark. When the sun rose, the creatures retreated. The family packed up their belongings and left the property for good.
And apparently the family that lives there now are still having the same issues.
And that's a very abbreviated version of that, because it kind of it didn't
I
just
wanted to I didn't want to do the whole version, because then the show would be 4 hours.
yeah. I'm just letting people know that that's a very abbreviated version of it, because it started over multiple nights. I mean, they went walking in the woods. I think it was their kids went walking in the woods, and father and the son were walking in the woods.
They found this big dome, like of piled up branches with tunnels into it, and they could hear something in there growling. They got out of there. Yeah, there's a lot more to this.
Yeah.
But from what I'm given to understand, that area of Palmyra, that area around Palmyra, is very active for Dogman sightings, and the people that live there still have problems.
Yeah, I want to say Jeff said that's not too far from where he lives, or he knows about where the area is, and he says it's.
Well, yeah, Jeff hunts up there. He goes bear hunting in Maine.
Jeff, if you're still in the chat, chime in. If you're not asleep.
McKinley says, didn't Darkwater say that Lockett Ranch was underwater now? Look at Sardis Lake and when it was created. I'll have to look into that. Next time I talk to him, I'll ask him about it, because I would like to go down there and check that area.
So, and like I said, from a, since we've been talking tactics and things like that, getting into the whole siege, since that's what we're talking about, this one kind of escalated from, in
this case, they didn't shoot at him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But, they were there for what, maybe a month before it really started.
Yeah, they hadn't lived there very long.
Yeah, maybe a month that they were there. They used, husband and wife like to sit out.
He was retired because of a disability, I believe it was.
Yeah, and him and his son were very big into hunting. Wife was not into it. So when they moved out there, she made him put the guns in the barn. So that's why
made him build like a enclosure in the barn to keep the guns locked up.
No.
So, but they used to enjoy sitting on the porch at night. Like DA said, there was the father and the son went out walking in the woods, found that structure. So I think that's what got it started, because they kind of went further into the woods than they had ever been at that time. And they kind of intruded into that territory, I think.
And they followed them.
So the next night or two, that's when they started seeing the eye shine or hear it. I think they heard the sounds first, and then night or two after that's when they started seeing the eye shine. Then it graduates into where we picked the story up, and it ended up with the family was upstairs in the daughter's room, I believe, and they all crowded in the daughter's second story room. Yeah. And there was, I believe, there was a couple times when some of the creatures were trying to jump up on that little eave.
Yeah.
And
right underneath the window.
Yeah. And trying to get up.
Next morning, they said there were scratches all over the walls of the house.
Jesus, dude. That's freaking terrifying.
So tactically this was like very coordinated by these creatures. I mean, they specifically stayed out of the light, because that's how when the father went for the guns, it leaves out in this abbreviated version, but he said when he was running for the guns, anytime he got into the dark, that's when they moved at him. But when he got back into the light, like around they had one of those motion detecting lights, when he got back into the light, they would back up.
Right.
So they didn't want to get into the light.
And when he tried to get to his truck, as soon as he walked out of the porch light, they came toward him. And when he backed up into the porch light, they backed off.
So, Doc,
Yes, sir.
biologically speaking,
Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
the bipedal locomotion, is it possible that these were bears they saw running at them?
No, because if a bear is going to run at you, it's going to drop down to all fours. It's not going to run on two legs.
Not for any extended amount of time, in other
No,
words, right?
a bear will go up on its hind legs to reach up and grab something, or to investigate, to stand up so it's got a better vantage point to look out and see what's going on out in the AO. But it's not gonna run on two legs. It's gonna drop down to all fours, where a bear can run up to 40 mile an hour. So anywho, yeah, but that's bear's not gonna be dropping, not gonna be Usain Bolt sprinting on
Right.
two back legs. If it's gonna run at you, it's dropping down and getting all four. It's doing 4-wheel drive, 4-bear
And
drive.
these things were definitely using a pack mentality.
Yeah, 100%. Because it was a coordinated effort, which also shows intelligence. So, and the fact that their growls and their vocalization show they communicate with one another. You know what I mean?
Well, and they were flanking them. I mean, it wasn't like they were just going to a specific. You had one coming to the front. You had others moving off to the sides. I mean, that's like we said, that's showing intelligence.
Mm-hmm. No, it is. It's showing intelligence, showing coordination, and communication. You got to have all that to have an attack. You know what I mean? So, and that's what they had also been doing that, doing the same thing as the others had in the other encounters, and intelligence gathering. So it wasn't just like a spur of the moment thing.
So what do you think, DA? Do you think them pushing out into the woods is what you think? You think it was just random or haphazard? Do you think them pushing out in the woods is what stirred it all up?
I think it was an encroachment. I think those things didn't want them in their territory, but as long as they stayed in the house, they were probably fine. But I think moving out into the woods attracted more attention than they really wanted.
I mean, that's what I think, because like I said, they were there for maybe not a long time, but they were there for, at least a couple weeks before things started happening. And we lost Doc.
Oh, uh-oh.
I think it was something like you said. I think they pushed a little too far, tested a little too far into the boundaries.
There he is.
And yeah, I don't know what happened.
Cyber monkeys.
Yeah.
For those of you in the chat, folks, I apologize. Every once in a while, we get a troll that likes to come in and stir up trouble, and he's been blocked, so he won't be back. But that's one thing we like to say on this show is there are no experts in this field, and anybody that comes in expecting everything they say to be treated as gospel while basically taking cheap shots at everybody else, they're just going to get blocked, because there are no experts in this field. And how we learn is by studying the case events that have happened before. We do spend a lot of time out in the field. We have had our own encounters. We have studied video encounters. We've done all of that. But we do circle back to these older encounter stories because we have a lot to learn from them. And by dissecting them the way that we're doing it tonight, we're looking at patterns and behavior. We're looking at the way these things behave, both aggressively and non-aggressively. We're looking at to learn as much as we can from previous incidents so we can prepare for possible incidents in the future.
Well,
It's interesting.
You can't make everybody happy.
That's true.
And, nobody's beating a dead horse. We're just talking about things that, sieges that have happened. I mean, it's not.
Well, if we're not their cup of tea, there are lots of other shows out there. Please feel free to watch those.
Yep.
Anyway, I think that we've pretty well covered the Palmyra incident.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorites. I love that one.
It is a good one. Hey, we're at 5 minutes still, and it looks like we're probably going to go 20, 30 minutes over. How about we take another brief commercial pause, and we will be right back. That'll give me a chance to top up my drink. So we're going to take a quick pause for another ad at the 2-hour mark, and we'll probably go for a little bit longer. So we'll see you guys in a minute.
The new book, How to Research a Haunted House by paranormal investigator Margie Kay and professional researcher Violet Wisdom, is now available from Unex Media. This one-of-a-kind book explains how to do research on a house with uncommon methods and resources used by historic home researchers, and how to determine who may be doing the haunting and why. How to research a haunted house can be used by homeowners, renters, investors, and it should be in the library of all professional paranormal investigators. Get this unique book at unexmedia.com or amazon.com. That's unexmedia.com or amazon.com.
Hey everybody, this is Kerry Pocket Davis from Dark Angel Medical, and you are listening to DA Ex Machina with DA Roberts. You may recognize me or some of my products from Dark Angel Medical in some of the Apex Predator, Lakeview Man, and Wild Hunt books, and you can get those products at www.darkangelmedical.com, along with training classes on how to use those products and save a life. Shoot us an email at info@darkangelmedical.com and be the difference.
The Unex Network presents a health and wellness spiritually based brand of hemp-derived CBD products made by Hopewell Farm in Harrogate, Tennessee. We apply our Cathara energy work with all of our plants and products. Our products made in small batches with only 2 ingredients of pure hemp, full-spectrum crude oil, and coconut-derived MCT oil. Third-party lab tested for potency and legal THC levels with 6 strengths of 1 ounce oil to choose from. Know what you're buying and get what you pay for from Hopewell Farm. Applied directly to a specific area, Hopewell Farm topical salve in 1 ounce and ½ ounce sizes, made with pure hemp crude oil, comfrey extract, and all natural ingredients. Find the Hopewell Farm link and coupon code on the Unex Network website at unexnetwork.com. That's unexnetwork.com.
And folks, we are back. Thank you guys for sticking with us. We're gonna jump into this as soon as right as we come back. We're gonna be talking about the next story in the line. Where'd Doc go? We lost Doc.
He had to step away. He'll be right back.
I saw a question. I wanted to kind of address. Drunken Irish Master says the question is, where are the Sasquatch corpses or all the other forest dwelling cryptids? I'm not denying their existence. I've been in the woods in and out my whole life, and I have yet to ever find a bear skeleton. And I know bears exist. I've never found a wolf skeleton. I found dead coyotes because I put them there. Coyotes are a pest, and they'll kill your livestock. But we think these things are intelligent. We think they bury their dead. And how many times have you found a mountain lion skeleton? Because these animals, when mountain lions and bears, they tend to crawl back in very inaccessible places to lay down and die. Now, if these things are as intelligent as we think they are, and I believe they're very intelligent, they are probably either burying their dead or taking them below ground. I kind of think it's the latter. I think these things spend a lot of time in caves, and I think that's why they're hard to find.
Not to mention all the little critters that take care of stuff in the forest.
Right. You can leave a deer out in the woods and just leave the body out there, the whole body, and you go back and check on it in a month, and it'll be gone. We won't even find small bones because porcupines eat bone. Smaller animals will scatter the bones. That whole skeleton will be broken down and gone. In fact, I guarantee you, if we went out to at the end of Blunk Road, we wouldn't find a trace of any of those skeletons that were out there.
Yeah, like that deer skeleton that we saw out there the last time we were all there together, sitting there on the edge of the road.
Yep.
William says you'll find them in the water. You find bones in deep river caves and ponds and lakes. That's intelligence. Yeah, put the bodies where they're not going to be found. So I personally think that is why we don't find the bones. And in the cases when we have unearthed like giant skeletons, like in Lovelock Cave or in hundreds of other places across the U.S., the Smithsonian gets involved and then they're gone. Anytime the Smith and Lovelock Cave had theirs on display for years until the Smithsonian asked to study them, and now the Smithsonian claims that they lost them or they never had them.
Here it comes.
Yeah, it's the flag. But yeah, I think that's why we don't find skeletons. I think they're smart enough to take care of their dead. There may even involve some like primitive ritual where they bury their dead or mourn their dead. But in the times that the bodies have been found, I think they've been quickly seized either by the government or by the Smithsonian. And we've had lots of documented cases with multiple eyewitnesses of Bigfoot corpses being recovered. In fact, in the case we're just about to cover, when it was all said and done, there were eyewitnesses that saw a helicopter leaving LBL with something big in a cargo net dangling from beneath a helicopter that then turned and headed for Fort Campbell.
It's a bear. It's a bear.
It's a bear. It's a big bear. So I think that, yes, Bigfoot bodies have been found, but every time they've been covered up and it's been shut up.
But just like Mount St. Helens eruption.
Just like Mount St. Helens. They supposedly hauled them out by truckloads.
Yep.
But this next one is
There's
probably one of the
challenge flag on that one. Let's go back and look at the instant replay.
But this next one is possibly the most infamous of all these stories. This story's has been circulating for a while, and Doc, if you want to start us out about the story from the land between the lakes, I'd love to hear you cover the description while I try to avoid my dog knocking my desk over.
Certainly. Yeah, and if you don't like what we're talking about, bless your heart. So here we go. Case File 5. This is the beast of the land between the lakes. Now, the land between the lakes is well known. It's a place where the forest feels older than the roads that cut through it. And even today, the trace, that long winding north to south road through there that runs the length of the peninsula there, it feels remote. Even just once you get a few miles in, it's kind of creepy. According to this, I don't have firsthand experience. Hopefully we'll in April. But, fewer visitors, Robbie and DA can attest to this, fewer visitors, fewer rangers, fewer eyes. The farther you get down along that trace, the more isolated and remote it gets. Now, the most infamous story from this region is the one that's whispered by the hunters, the rangers, and the locals up there. It happened just off a trace in this little narrow spur road that's going towards the Numbers Bay. You've heard DA talk about the Numbers Bay several times on this.
That's where my sighting was on that road.
Right. So Demumbers Bay, it's a quiet area. It's thick with trees. Only a few scattered pull-offs where campers can go park for the night. And
they're all primitive campsites. There's no
right.
power out there. There's no running water. Right. You bring it in or you ain't got it.
Right. It's basically an off-the-grid camp. And so this family had taken their camper down that road. They wanted to just get away for the weekend. They found a secluded spot just off the pavement with dense woods all around all sides. There's nobody else around. There's no other traffic or nothing like that. And then all they heard was, the water lapping on the shore and the insects and everything. And then after dark, things got a little bit funky. All right. So the first sign was the sound. They heard these heavy, deliberate footsteps moving around the camper. These weren't like the little tippy taps, like little quick steps of a deer or anything or any other forest creature, padding around there like a coyote. These were very slow and weighty and purposeful, and something was walking circles around the trailer, right? So it was circling them, which is a predatory behavior. So, and then came growls. Oops. Well, deep resonant growls, low enough that the vibrations carried through and vibrated the metal frame of the camper. And I'm pretty sure they realized pretty doggone Rick tick that whatever was outside was not a normal animal. So now what happened next? This is what was reconstructed from the aftermath, because sadly no one lived to tell that story. When the searchers eventually found the site, the camper was shredded, done, torn open. That aluminum was bent and twisted, and furniture was smashed. Everything looked like a tornado had gone through the interior of it and ripped it apart. The detail is that's what happened, and that's what kept this case alive, because it separates it from every other Dogman report. Was found in the trees. A young girl, a little girl.
I think she's about 3.
Huh?
I think she was about 3.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see the age on here. Yeah, they found her 30 feet up in the branches of the large tree near the campsite. She was the only member of the family that was found intact. They didn't find others. She was the only one found intact. There were no claw marks on the trunk, no broken tree branches going up, no sign she had climbed. It's like something just put her there. So searchers described that scene as one of the most unsettling they'd ever encountered. The camper was torn apart with a level of violence no known predator could produce. The girl's position in the tree defied logic and physics, basically defied science, and the woods around the area were silent. Unnaturally so. We talk about that whenever you lose all your forest sounds. Now, over the years, people witnesses described this wolf-headed like creature that towers over in the LBL region. It's massive, it's muscular, it's capable of running on 2 legs or 4, and its eyes that reflect like an apex predator, and a growl that's deep and resonant in its chest. Now, is the story camper fully accurate? Is it partially embellished? Is it something in between? I don't know. Is the location that little pull off in Demumbers Bay, though? What we do know, that area is still avoided by many locals. Hunters don't.
They bulldozed off that campground. You can't find it.
And so hunters don't want to go there. Rangers don't want to go there. And people who know that area say that area in the woods is different. It has a heavier, quieter, more watchful spot. Almost, it reminds me of the feeling in Moon Valley and also at Combs Ferry, that same heavy feeling. And whatever it was that night, it wasn't a bear, it wasn't a coyote, dang sure wasn't a human. It was something else that was able to tear that camper open and catch that family that was running away and put a baby 30 feet up in the tree. And so
this was a little bit more abbreviated like the last one. We're going to add some detail to this.
Yeah.
But allegedly the father and the son, who was around, I think, 10 years old, were found outside the camper.
Gee.
The father was torn up, had his arm mostly torn off. The son was basically just mauled to death. The mother, however, when it got inside the camper, they said the mother put up one hell of a fight. She was trying to protect her baby, and I guess the from the blood spatter and everything on the inside of that camper, they could tell that she did not go down easily.
Nice.
It overpowered her, and they didn't even know there was a little girl there until they found her clothes. They found little girl's clothes in the camper, and they're like, "Wait a minute, we got a missing victim."
Wow.
And the version of the story I remember reading said the little girl had been fed on, and that there was 2 highway patrolmen that found her body, and were out. It was dark. They were searching with flashlights, and they stopped under a tree and were looking and calling her name. And one of them kept having something dripping on the brim of his hat. And he looked up, and they found her up in the tree she'd been fed on.
Good Lord.
They were actually, the crime scene was actually discovered by another group of people who were looking for a campsite, and they pulled through and saw the bodies and took off. And this was back in the day. This was 82, was way back before cell phones. So they had to drive miles away to find a store with a payphone to call the sheriff.
Mm, mm, mm. That's heartbreaking, man. That's horrible.
Killed the whole family.
It's very horrible. Lord mercy. Mm-mm-mm.
And there's another story that DA and I found at one time, and then it got scrubbed.
I remember y'all talking about that. But, you know, that's not the only time that's happened to DA, is it, DA?
That is not. When we first started digging into Joe Bald and why it was abandoned, we found, Steve can tell you exactly, it was either 8 or 9 references to people who had gone missing. And they said some of them, they believed that they'd gone swimming in the lake and then went under. And I don't know if that's really the case, because Table Rock, that water's cold. Divers like it because the water's very clear. But I've swam in Table Rock and that water's cold. Even in the dead of summer, it's a lot of springs feed into that lake. So I don't know that, you know, especially at night, that I would have gone swimming in Table Rock Lake.
No. No.
And there's no place there at Joe Bald that was ever roped off for safe swimming. So it made no sense to me that these people just decided in the middle of the night to take a swim and were never seen again. But we found he was either 8 or 9 references of missing persons in and around Joe Bald. And then when we went back to print those incidents out, because I was going to include them in the first Lakeview Man book, they were gone. We find error 404s, you know, website no longer active. So
the files got corrupted, DA.
Right. Yeah. But, you know, where have we heard that before? But,
Just the other day we were talking about that.
Yeah.
How the cloud get corrupted.
Right.
You know? That's crazy. Man.
But that's not the first time that's happened when things have been scrubbed from the internet.
No. And it won't be the last.
Right.
No.
But I'm sorry to interject there, Doc. You want to pick up right where you were?
No, I mean, we were just talking about some of the things about the mythical and cultural weight of everything too. You know, I mean, as far as is this LBL story, because this is kind of like the magnum opus of Dogman lore. You know, is it the dark heart of it?
What I know now that I didn't know in 2022 is my sighting was within about 100 yards of where this happened.
Yep.
Okay, so why is that story not told more? Why is it so tap danced around? You know what I mean?
Well, it's one of those things that, you know, they just do not like to advertise that, because that park and those lakes make Tennessee and Kentucky a lot of money. I mean, that town of Grand Rivers where I stayed, when I stayed there, that whole town is, you know, it lives on the tourist trade. People come there to fish on that lake. There's fishing tournaments on both of those lakes. In fact, when I asked people about it in Grand Rivers, you know, I got one of 2 reactions. I got, "Oh, I've never heard of that," which is weird because not far away over in the next town over, everybody had a story. But there in Grand Rivers, they didn't want to talk about it, or the one guy,
right?
I say he threw me out of his store. It was a bait shop there in Grand Rivers, and he very politely asked me to leave. He didn't like grab me and throw my ass out of the store.
Yeah.
He's like, "Yeah, I'm not going to talk about that, and you should probably go."
Because if they shoot themselves in the foot, they lose tourism money.
Mm-hmm.
And also, which is probably why the records got scrubbed, because that's not good PR to have multiple accounts of these encounters happening in the same exact geographic area.
In fact, I asked a deputy sheriff there in Green Rivers. I saw him at one of the stores when I was getting groceries for the cabin. I asked him about it, and he said, I can't comment on that. And then I told him, I said, "Hey, I'm not just some schmuck." I showed him my credentials. I said, "I'm a retired deputy sheriff. I'm researching for a book. I just asked one cop to another, what can you tell me?" And he sat there for a second and he said, well, one cop to another, my best advice is to you is to drop this and not pursue it any further. And then he walked off and wouldn't talk to me anymore.
Damn, that's strong, son. That is strong. Good.
Yeah, he wasn't rude. He's just like, I advise you, best advice I can give you is to drop this and not pursue it.
Well, good thing for us, you're hard-headed.
Well, apparently, they're right there at Demumbers Bay, which is just down the road from where this incident happened. The road from the Trace to Demumbers Bay is not very long, just a couple of miles. But there at Demumbers Bay, just a few years before that, I think it was in 76 or 78, a guy who worked for Game and Fish was out early one morning fishing in the bay. And he looked over in Demumbers Bay and there was a couple camped there. And they got out of their tent and he saw a Dogman walking up behind him. And he starts yelling and pointing and screaming. And they looked up to see what he was yelling at. And it got both of them.
Holy shnikes.
So apparently that area has had numerous incidents where people have gone missing, including the famous deer hunter story, where a guy was out bow hunting and he was overdue and they sent the park rangers looking for him and they found his campsite torn to shreds. They found his bow broken, his arrows scattered, and they found his body had been dragged like 2 miles off into the woods and fed on.
That's definitely a bear. Definitely a bear.
Bro, of course it was.
Of course it was a bear. I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
Right where I've told you my encounter at LBL, literally was on the road or the little turnoff that you go into the camp where that first one happened that you just
Right
read
there
about.
by Demumbers Bay.
So you were there within just how many 100 yards did you say, Robbie?
Oh, I was within probably, what did you say, DA, about 50 yards of the campsite?
You were damn close.
Yeah.
You were almost on top of it.
I was on top of it. Didn't know it at the time, but I was.
So you were right in the thick of it. Damn.
DA, where my sighting was just up the road from DA. DA had his sighting just down the road.
And that's the same area where Martin Grove's sighting was.
So y'all were all literally within a quarter mile of all that stuff happening.
Yep,
damn.
Right there. That north end of LBL, that's some creepy country. I've been into some crazy places. Hell, we were down in Moon Valley, and once we got up out of the valley, we saw deer. There were a deer out there. But in LBL, outside of LBL, there were deer all over our campground where we were at. We'd see roadkill along the highway. We'd see roadkill inside LBL. In the week I was wandering around LBL, I didn't see a single animal, not even a bird. I could hear some in the distance, but I never even saw a bird. And there was zero roadkill anywhere.
Is that where Annette got her pine cone thrown at her?
No, that was up in northern Missouri.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna tell you what, man. Why is there no roadkill? Because they got their own cleanup crew.
Yep.
And
I didn't see so much as a dead possum.
And I will second that, because the only dead animals that me and Johnny saw in Demumbers Bay were bone or skeletons of fish about that long scattered all over the shoreline.
I think they've been picked out.
Well, that first night in Demumbers Bay, I went down there alone. And I learned some valuable lessons that night. Number 1, don't go unarmed. Number 2, don't go alone. And number 3, don't walk 50 to 60 yards away from your vehicle and play predator calls.
Go.
I played Dying Rabbit and almost didn't make it back to the van.
All three of those are what we call self-correcting errors.
All you need is a little bitty fella sitting there going, "Don't do that. Don't do that."
Boys, come back, boys.
Come back, boys.
What kind of strength would it have taken to bust into a camper like that? Now they made them heavier in the 80s and the 70s than they make them now.
You can still get into one with a fire axe.
Yeah.
You know, a rescue.
But ain't no person gonna tear into it with their little fingies.
No, absolutely not. A person can get into it with mechanical advantage, but not biological, alone.
Right.
Yeah, you give me a Hearst tool, I'll open it up like that. But
Or Halligan bar, yeah.
Right.
a Hogan tool.
To bend the walls and twist them outward and destroy all the furniture inside, man, come on. That's a lot. Y'all check out Luca's books. Go give her some love.
So tearing its way into a camper like that, not typical for a bear.
No. I mean,
not to mention, I'm sure there are bear in LBL, but I never saw one.
And okay, and let's look at the bear. 450-pound black bear. That's a big boy, right? 450-pound black bear. Could it tear into something like that? Maybe, but that's like Kodiak level destruction right there. You know what I mean?
If there was something in there that it really, really wanted, and
Right.
it was hungry, and all the perfect storm lined up, yeah.
And where's the weak point? The weak point's the freaking door or a window. This was talking about walls ripped apart, shredded.
Right.
That's like I said, that's like Kodiak level destruction, man. Kodiak, them suckers are 12, 14, 15 feet, man. Those things are huge. So
that's a big bear.
Yeah, a black bear going to look like a freaking weenie dog next to a freaking Kodiak. For real.
Like me standing next to Shaquille O'Neal.
Exactly.
I'd look like a toddler.
Y'all know that dude, that defensive lineman, Ryan Miller? The Denver Broncos dude.
Mm-hmm.
He played for Denver Broncos. I took a picture next to him. I'm going to find it. And you're going to laugh because it is quite humorous.
I've seen this picture.
Huh?
I've seen this picture.
You have seen it. This is how a black bear would look next to a Kodiak. Like me next to Ryan Miller. Because he is a big individual. I look like a freaking toddler, man. I really do. That's me and Jerry Miculek. Hold on a second. I'll find it. Oh, here it is. This is me standing next to Ryan Miller. This is a black bear next to a Kodiak.
It looks like take your kid to work day.
I find no humor in that. Actually, that's really good. Yeah.
I'm about to say good. I found enough for both of us in
it. Yeah. I mean, literally, my hand's around his belt or my arm. Good Lord. He's a big...
Ventus Brumus gave us a super chat, but thank you, by the way.
Thank you.
I follow a couple that went where the LBL attack site. However, they actually found the abandoned and destroyed campground, like the story, in another part of the park near Martin's location. From what I was told from people that have been there, that it's somewhere near Demumbers Bay, somewhere off of Demumbers Bay Road. But there are a number of abandoned campgrounds there in LBL.
Well, people talk about Martin, and just so you know, how I know where I was at came directly, which is in relation to where DA was at, came directly from Martin. So. Because I told Martin where I was at.
That's right, because you talked to him there at that meet and greet.
Yes, he was at the meet and greet. I told him the next day. I told him exactly where I was at. He said you were within 30 to 40 yards of the original kill site. So take that with a grain of salt, but that came directly out of Martin Grove's mouth. So where he said where I was standing, and before I even described exactly where I was at, he said, you went past the visitor center on your left. You went up the hill just a little ways, turned to the right, went up, turned around. There's a little cemetery on your left. If you went down the road a little ways, there's a big red bar gate across. I said, yep. He said, you were within 20 or 30 yards of the original site. Before I even told him, he described exactly where I was standing, which was literally, like I said, maybe 0.3 of a mile, if that, from where DA had his sighting. Because DA had his on the other side of the visitor center. I had the visitor center was literally in between mine and DA sightings.
Wow.
On the same side of the road, but literally with the visitor center in between us. So
that's honestly, that's kind of unnerving, dude. When you found it out, did it kind of give you the willies a little bit?
a little bit.
I mean, that
All
you're
right.
that close to where that kind of crap happened.
Well,
Yeah,
I immediately,
it made things very real for me in
Yeah,
that
that
moment.
does that adds some
I
finality to it.
immediately called DA and said, dude, because y'all both already knew about the sighting I had, because I'd already called y'all
Yeah.
and told y'all. I immediately called DA and said, dude, guess what? He said, what? Because we had already talked about, he and I had already talked about, you know, how close where I was to where he was. And I told him what Martin said.
Sorry.
Bless you, Peaches.
Bless you, sweet pickles.
And DA was like, are you serious? I said, that's what Martin said. I said, and I told him what I just said about where he described it. And he was like, oh, crap. He said, we were literally like right there. I said, yep.
That's scary, dude.
That whole part of that whole north end of LBL, that whole area around Demumbers Bay is just creepy as hell.
Dang. I can't wait to go.
Oh, I can't wait to go back either.
I wish my brothers could come up with me. That'd be fun. Have them meet me up there. Yeah, I'm talking to you,
More
Bones.
pew pews, more better.
That's right. I'm talking to you, Bones.
I mean, come on, Bones.
We could go up to the land between the lakes.
Make it a family affair.
Yeah. I gotta fly on my night vision and my thermal. That's gonna be fun. Jackass. Okay. What we got? So let's talk about this. Is LBL a true hot spot, or is
Definitely.
or is it, you know, or they're the myth making? You know, I mean, is it people just making myths?
Sightings from that area have dated back to the late 1600s from French trappers. Long before it was land between the lakes, when it was still land between the rivers, the Native American tribes, including the Choctaw, the Cherokee, and I believe even the Osage to an extent in that area, all said that was cursed ground and they wouldn't even hunt there. But in 1963, when the Tennessee Valley Authority built those two dams and created, Kentucky Lake and Lake Barkley, that area became land between the lakes. And they kicked a lot of people off their land to turn that into a wildlife management area, public use area. But even after they flooded that valley, those valleys, and made that a peninsula basically in the middle of these two lakes, the activity didn't die down. In fact, it just seemed to intensify.
Do you think that was in part because maybe they lost some ground and it pissed them off?
Maybe. I think that's a big part of it. But they're both Bigfoot and Dogman sightings in there. And it would go a long way to explain why they have herds of elk and wood bison there, both large species of ungulates that you aren't allowed to hunt.
That's interesting.
Why would those be introduced to the park if not to attract hunters?
Snacks.
So maybe those things would quit picking off hikers and campers.
Right. We're gonna sacrifice you to the forest creatures. Yeah, the critters. Yeah, that makes sense. I didn't know they had put elk and wood bison there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Raise my rent. What movie? Blazing Saddles. Well, raise my rent.
Now, if you just said 2 is my lemon on Schnitzengrubel, I'd have probably known what you was talking about.
Roxanne has a good point. Makes me wonder if there could also be a Gugway or 3 there also.
Allegedly, there are also caves beneath LBL.
Well, that kind of solidifies it right there, man. That's not speculation.
No, not at all.
There's those geographical features. That's known.
Ain't this place a geographical oddity? Caves everywhere.
2 weeks from everywhere.
So, folks, one thing we learned from all of these encounters is that sieges are different. Um, they're not like ordinary sightings. They're not people just catching a glimpse of something going across the road. They're not just accidental sightings. They're moments when something out there decided to close the distance and get up close and personal, shake the walls and let its presence be known. And across every case we've talked about tonight, we're talking about creatures moving with coordination, creatures showing curiosity or territorial aggression, things testing structures, circling homes, or watching from the dark. They didn't run from gunfire. They didn't creatures that didn't behave like anything we know. So, the woods remember, the land remembers, and sometimes whatever's out there remembers too. So whether you believe in Bigfoot or Dogman or something else entirely, one thing is certain: the people that live through these nights will never forget them, and neither do the places where they happened. Much like not too long ago when we talked about the old green eyes of Chickamauga, that land remembers. And when you've had these kind of incidents, this kind of darkness is drawn to a place, it stays there. It lingers like the land has a memory of its own. And before, again, like I said, before this was land between the lakes, it was known as land between the rivers, and it was already called cursed ground. And I think we're starting to see that some of these places that have these dark, negative vibes to them seem to attract these things. And maybe it's a causality loop. Maybe one causes the other, then it just spirals. Or maybe these things are in those areas because people avoid them. There's lots of possibilities, but in every one of these cases, we learn that their behaviors are intelligent, they're planned, and in a lot of cases, they hunt like packs, and it's very dangerous to underestimate them. So the next time you hear, something getting in your garbage cans, you might think twice about firing a shotgun blast in the air, because you might just kick off a siege, and trust me, nobody wants that. So we're gonna start. Yeah, we're going to start winding things down, but y'all just remember, keep your lights on, keep your doors locked, and just remember, when something scratches at your walls, you'll learn real fast what fear really is. So before we wind up, though, we're going to talk a second about our affiliates. Doc, tell us a little bit about the good folks at Dark Angel Medical.
All right. So, hey, folks, if y'all ever go over to darkangelmedical.com and check us out. We have anything from minor first aid kits to your major trauma kits out there. And not only do we provide the kits, we provide the training on how to use it. Our 2026 schedule is out right now, and we are adding classes by the month. If you use the coupon code Cryptid20, that'll take 20% off your order. That does not expire. All of our kits are HSA, FSA, okay. So if you got a few days left on your HSA account, you got about 4 more days left. You can go in there and buy something and use some of that HSA money. And if you ever use one of our kits to save your life or someone else, just let us know. Send us an email to the info@darkangelmedical.com, and we'll replace what you've used absolutely free. That's called our Kit for Life Guarantee. And we are now up to 211 saves. So
birthdays and boxes.
Birthdays and boxes, baby. So head over to darkangelmedical.com, because the time chooses you.
And don't forget to use discount code Cryptid20 for 20% off your order.
Correct.
Robbie, you want to tell us a little bit about the good folks over at Scallywag Tactical?
Head on over to scallywagtactical.com and check out their very, very, very extensive selection of combat cutlery and other forms of cutlery. They make all kinds of blades for just about anything that you could possibly use a blade for: lock blades, fixed blades. Unfortunately, they don't have no more swords. They got rid of the dew claw. They got rid of the gunner's mate, and they got rid of the bounty. But they do have what took place of the gunner's mate, the Renanda, which is a very good blade. Veteran-owned company. Craig and his guys do an excellent job on customer service. Go check them out. Tell them we sent you. Use code DA Roberts 10 at checkout and get yourself 10% off. I still don't think they have the blemish blades back up but still go check them out, get yourself some blades. They probably run some after Christmas sales now, I would
Probably.
think. So you're not going to go wrong with one of these.
No.
We've all got multiple
See,
blades, and we were all happy with them. Very happy.
Very much so.
Craig's a great guy.
Yeah, he is. And folks, don't forget our other one, our newest of the group, the good folks over at SigwoArms.com. Sigwo is a arms manufacturer here in Springfield, Missouri, and they have the license to create create your codename Wild Hunt and Dark Frontiers logos on your receivers, upper or lower, whichever you choose. Josh, no, it's 10% off.
10%.
Josh. DA Roberts 10% off.
Yes.
But again, check out the good folks over at Sigwo. And if you want to get a Wild Hunt custom build, they're the folks to do it. They're awesome folks. They even manufacture their own ammunition. You can get it at very good prices. And then use discount code Bigfoot5 for 5% off your order. Or if you're a military veteran or first responder, let them know that and you can get 10% off. So check them out. Let them know we sent you. And tell the Codys we said hi. And you guys will not be disappointed. They have some high quality stuff. Josh Dalton says there's a 25% off sale going on at Scallywag. Hell, an even better deal. So yeah, check out Scallywag. They got 25% off running right now. Awesome.
Then that code should get you an extra 10% off of that too. That's usually the way they work.
Yeah. So again, check all three of them out, folks. And don't forget to check out the awesome books by the very talented Luca T. Jacobs, who's in the audience tonight. Let me see if I can find her. There we go. We'll put hers back up there. Check out Luca T. Jacobs, lucatjacobs.com, or find her on Amazon. And incidentally, you can also find, just fell over here, you can find his books on Amazon, including his newest, which is called Avalon Rising, which has been burning up the charts. It's a fantastic book, and I think you guys are going to like it. He's got some more books coming very soon. I think you guys are going to enjoy those as well. So look for Robbie Jed Rains on Amazon.com and collect his whole series. He's got 5 in print now?
7.
7 in print. Okay, so
Working on 8 now.
Check out all of them, and you're going to love them. You'll thoroughly enjoy them. And if you're already there, I would find it, I would take it as a kindness if you would also check out my books, which are available at daroberts.net or on amazon.com. I have 37 currently in print and climbing, and I'll have more coming out over the next few weeks. Hopefully soon, I'll have some release information. So folks, check all those out. And don't forget, every time you buy a book from an indie author, you're not just adding to the coffers of some major publication. You're helping an indie author keep writing, because most indie authors don't make much. And we're proud to support our indie authors. So check them all out and leave a review and a like for the book, because those reviews really do power the Amazon sales. Until your book even hits 50 reviews, the Amazon doesn't even promote it. So even if it's liked it is all you say, great. Just leave a review. We would sure appreciate it, because again, those do power sales and they are very helpful. So if you've got a favorite author out there, make sure you leave them a good review and send them a text or an email and let them know they're doing a good job, or post on their Facebook. Because again, these indie folks, they're doing it it's a labor of love. It's not like they're making a living at it. You've got to really put a lot of work into these to keep these going. So check out Luca's books, check out Robbie's books, and check out my books all over at Amazon.com. And I think you're going to enjoy them. But I would be remiss if I did not mention the 22 a Day Foundation. We lose 22 veterans a day to suicide, and that's 22 too many. Check out mission22.org. I don't have a race here to put stuff up for me. And check out mission22.org, or you can also check out ODMP.com, which stands for Officer Down Memorial Page. ODMP.com will let you know the toll that's being taken on first responders, and it's incredible. So reach out to your friends and family who are first responders or veterans. Let them know you think about them. Let them know you care. Because your text that says, "Hey, how are you doing?" or "Hey, you want to go grab a beer?" or anything like that, your text might be what keeps them off the wall, keeps them off the edge that day. And at least 22 times we're losing that battle. Although they're saying that we're making progress, it may be as few as 17 a day now, which is awesome. But let's get it down to 0 where it needs to be. So again, let these folks know you're thinking about them. Let them know you care. And don't let the hard days win, folks. And at the end of the show, if you're a veteran or a first responder and you need assistance, there's a number that'll be playing in the credit, that'll show at the credits. Use that, please. Because we would rather hear your story than read your obituary. And God bless each and every one of you. And I want to say a big shout out and thank you to everybody in the chat tonight. You guys are awesome. I hope you guys had the best of Christmases and a wonderful New Year. And now that I'm a little bit on the mend, I'm feeling a lot better. We will see you guys back on Monday night for Monday Mayhem, and then we'll be back on Wednesday night with the Nightmare Hunters as usual. And we will continue to do our best to bring you enjoyment and entertainment. And we would appreciate each and every one of you. Our thoughts and prayers are with everybody that needs it. I know there's a lot of folks going through a lot of things. So keep each other in your prayers, folks, and hold each other tight, especially this holiday season, because the holidays are always rough on folks. So just remember, some folks, just because they ain't showing it, don't mean they ain't struggling. So let's keep each other in our prayers and keep each other held tight and lifted up. And we will close this show out with a toast. And Doc,
yes, sir.
If you don't mind, would you take us out with the toast?
Absolutely, thank you, sir. So this is from the Irish drinking song, "The Parting Glass." And if you raise whatever you have with us, and repeat after us. So, but since it fell into my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night and joy be to you all. Slàinte mhath. Good night, everyone.
Slàinte mhath.
Thank you all.
Good night.
Slanja.
Plains, the winds are howling, saloon doors swinging, shadows growling. 3 lawmen stand tough as rawhide. Yeah, Doc DA, nothing can abide. Whiskey shots and poker faces, staring down the darkest spaces in this town where legends roam. These boys bring justice, sending evil home. Cryptid lawmen, wild and free, hunting monsters for all to see. With silver bullets and grit of steel, they fight the darkness, make the demons squeal. From dusty canyons to moonlit plains, justice rides with wind and rains. Cryptid lawmen, a fearsome sight, standing tall against the endless night. Jed's a howler, claws of steel. Doc's a biter, makes the devil real. But DA's a shifty one, a shape-shifting soul. Can turn to anything, takes any form, takes control. Tonight the chupacabras come to town, sucking the life from all around. But these lawmen, they ain't afraid. They'll face the darkness unafraid. Cryptid lawmen, wild and free, hunting monsters for all to see. With silver bullets and grit of steel, they fight the darkness, make the demons squeal. From dusty canyons to moonlit plains, justice rides with wind and rain. Cryptid lawmen, a fearsome sight, standing tall against the endless night. wings flap, the air grows cold, a chill and trap. But these lawmen, they're ready to fight underneath the pale moonlight. Jet and Doc transform with a howl. DA shifts, becomes a night owl. Together they stand a force so strong against the evil right in the road. Cryptid lawmen, wild and free, hunting monsters for all to see. With silver bullets and grit of steel, they fight the darkness, make the demons squeal. From dusty canyons to moonlit plains, justice rides with wind and rains. Cryptid lawmen, a fearsome sight, standing tall against the endless night.